All right. Good morning. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Peace, love, and light. That is a wonderful way to start the day. Thank you for that. All right. Beautiful. You guys, let me know. Before I start, I want to ask this question. It's a very serious question. Why are you all here? There are almost 1,000 people who showed up for this, or who signed up for this event. Almost 1,000 people started the process of learning. I want to know for you, why are you here? Why are you here? Put it in the chat, please. In the chat, you can select from the drop-down. You can select everyone, or you can select host and panelists. If you say host and panelists, then only me and the other speakers will see what you say. It's much more entertaining for everyone if you choose everyone from the drop-down. So let's see. To be a confident investor, education, perfect. To learn. How to invest in early inheritance. Well, I'm sorry you have an early inheritance. No one wants that. But being a good steward of what's been built and passed down, generational income, building a legacy, that is definitely what we're going to talk about today. How to grow your wealth, how to protect your wealth. Don's going to dig into that around asset protection, legacy planning. It is extremely important. Some people are saying, I don't know what to do next. I'm going to cover that, how to set some goals, how to start walking towards those, how to change my life, how to build a legacy, financial well-being, because Tanisha said so. Tanisha is one of the speakers, if you guys don't know. To hear a different perspective on wealth creation, protection, and legacy, that is really, really smart. That's a really, really smart investor if you said that, because once you start opening your ears, you're like, wow, there's so much out there. I mean, we're in the process right now. I say we, me and my husband, of exploring investments that we never thought possible. We're going to buy a bank. That's one of the things. I never thought I'd buy a bank. I mean, there are businesses you can buy as hands-off, but there are so many things, right? We're not going to get into all of them today. We're going to hit on a whole bunch though. But really investing, learning how to be a good steward of your money, it does change your life. And once it starts to change your life, it's like a catalyst. It just starts rolling and you have this great momentum as long as you continue to learn. So, you know, those of you saying, can we partner in the bank buy? Clint, if you'd like to, send me an email. Yes, you can. we may be offering it out to our audience to participate. It's really, really cool charter, a really cool mission-driven bank. But I'm not here to pitch that. But just kind of like saying there's just so much, right? So I wanted to start with that and to see what you guys are interested in. And it sounds like everything that you guys said, you're exactly in the right place. Early retirement, get that income snowball going, financial well-being. Yes, to be sure investments are wise. Yes. And, you know, to make sure, I see some of you say this as well, to make sure your investments are the right investments for your goals, that is extremely important. And that's what I'm going to start talking about today during my part of the talk, how to make sure that, because there's so many good investments, right? It doesn't mean an investment is bad if it's not the right one for you. I mean, I have different goals than each of you have. And so what I invest in may not be right for you, and what you invest in may not be right for me, because we all have different goals. So matching investments to your goals is super important. We'll talk about that today. All right, let me see if I missed anyone. To listen and learn from battle-tested investors. Oh yeah, I have lost some money in investments, if that's what you mean. I've learned what not to do. I've lost time in investments as well. That's not always what we want to do either. Okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to stream this and then come on back. All right, cool. All right, so everybody who sees this live in LinkedIn land, welcome. This is the Confident Investor Summit. This is our May 2023. Wow, we're here already. We do these all the time, all year long. We bring in experts for you investors, so you can hear, you know, there's a lot of gurus out there in the investing space. There's a lot of people saying things and selling things, but it's not what they do themselves. So today, what we're going to talk about in this Confident Investor Conference, mouthful, is what we do personally, what works for our communities, our investors. We're not selling anything, okay? So I'm not offering investments. No one up here is selling anything. We're all here to educate. We're all here to teach what we do, what works for us. We're all self-made millionaires. We learned along the way. This is for you to take a shortcut. This is your shortcut. What took us maybe 10, 15 years to fumble along and get to where we are, we're going to share with you today how you can do what worked and avoid all that other stuff that didn't work. So yes, we'll share what not to do. I see that in the chat. We definitely will. And because there is so much out there, right? And so that's what we're going to do today. Some logistics. We're recording everything. We're going to send the recording out to everyone who registered. So again, there are about 1,000 of you who registered. There's hundreds of you who showed up right now. So congratulations to being the people who are actually taking action to move forward. Because you can have in your mind, oh, I want to be a great investor. I want to build generational wealth. But unless you take action, unless you start learning, unless you have a notebook right now and write down, hey, we're going to go over how to create goals, how to create an investment plan, unless you write it down and then tomorrow and the next day start taking action, start contacting Dawn about an asset protection plan, start contacting a CPA about a tax strategy plan. Unless you take that next step forward, your life will be exactly the same and you'll have wasted these 3 hours of your life. So I really encourage you, those of you who are here, those of you who are listening to the replay out in LinkedIn land, etc., take action. Figure out one thing that you can do, one thing from each speaker where you're like, oh, I need to do that. Write it down. If you write down 10 pages of stuff, that's difficult. There's 4 speakers today, 5 including me. Write down 5 things that you can do today, tomorrow, within the next week, and start going. All right. So I'm going to bring up my slides and get going. Actually, Cynthia, can you post in the chat what the agenda will be? So more on logistics, there's me, and then we have 5 other speakers. Each of us are speaking for 30 minutes. It's all recorded. We have a lot of information, so I'm going to switch into really fast speaking mode. So all the times in the chat on the agenda are in Pacific time. So you can see all that. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Cynthia. And we'll go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. And if you guys could just let me know, does it look, oops, that's not what I want to do. I want to present. Does it look good to everyone? Okay, my question is already, I already asked the question to everyone, why are you here? But if you've just joined, my question was, why are you here? Because we had a lot of people register. And a lot of people attended, a lot of people didn't attend. So I was curious, why are you here? If you didn't answer that yet, think about it. Why are you here? And put it in the chat. I'd love to see, but it looks like those who did answer, you're in the right place at the right time. So welcome. All right. So, everyone said something around wealth building. And so when you're thinking about wealth building, legacy planning, being a confident investor, you don't want to look at people who've failed. Well, I mean, it's okay to look at them in order to learn and not do that, but you don't want to learn what to do from them, right? You want to look at the wealthy. What do the wealthy do? The wealthy don't only earn more, but they keep more and they grow more. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is earning more. Tanisha's going to talk about that in her income snowball. David is going to talk about that with his investments. Keep more, that's your tax strategy. Grow more, investing. Don's going to talk about keeping more with asset protection as well. So a bit about myself. This is not updated. We recently acquired some more. So we have 613 million assets under management right now, assets acquired, in addition to a $200 million energy fund. So that's kind of the size of Sugo Capital. And what we do is we connect investors to passive income opportunities. And so we never offer anything where, you're going to do it yourself, you're going to be hands-on. We've exited 6 of our investments, 6 of our properties, and it averaged 33% annualized return for our investors. I'm very proud of that. And we've acquired 24 properties. We are acquiring 2 more in the next 90 days. So that number will go up to 2 more. All right. So this is a really important picture. It's not just a picture of my family, so I can give them a modeling salary, anything like that. This is a really specific moment in my life. So I started setting my financial goals about 10 years ago. I know it was about 10 years ago because my daughter just had her 10th birthday a couple weeks ago. We went sailing in Belize for both of their birthdays. They're 3 days apart. I started planning, but I didn't know how to get there. I was making these plans and I was like, oh, I really want to be financially free. I want to be able to hang out with my kids more now that I'm going to have kids and, yada, yada. I didn't figure it out until a couple of years ago. But like I said, this is going to be our fast track. You're going to learn what we've done. And I do want to say we all are investing because we want to live our dream life. So if you think about what is your dream life and what is the gap, why aren't you there? It's almost always either time or money freedom. Okay. So for me, my values, my goals, what's really important to me is time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, yes, but really, really time freedom. Like I said, we were in Belize for a couple of weeks sailing for their birthdays. The last 2 weeks we were in Maui with my sister-in-law and her baby for their her 1-year birthday. We're able to do all this. We're able to travel. We have the time freedom, the location freedom because of the company that I've built, the investments that we've made. So for me, that's my dream life. We don't own our home anymore. We sold it. We invested the money. We live off the cash flow. That is wonderful to me. I feel free. Other people, they want investments so that they can feel grounded. They can have a home. So, everyone's dream life is different. But today we're going to talk about how to set financial goals and reach them for yourself. Now, this picture is a moment we were on vacation in France and everyone was having a fabulous time. And this was the last day we were going to go home. And I said, man, I really wish we could stay longer, but we have to go home. And my husband said, no, we don't. How much longer do you want to stay? And I realized, whoa, we did it. We did it. We hit the goal. We had the freedom. We had the location and time freedom. We extended our trip in France. It was only for like 4 more days on this trip, but we had the ability to do that because we were I was no longer working a 9-to-5 that required me to be at my office, butts and seats in San Francisco. So this is my proud moment that I realized I reached my goals, not just financial, but my other really important goals that fulfill me. So think about what those might be for you. So what I'm going to talk about today is 15 ways that you can make money in real estate. There's tons of other types of investments, right? But I'm going to talk about real estate today. I'm going to give an example of how to double your money with no work. Okay, it's not I'm not going to be pitching anything. It's an example of an investment type, a type of investment. We're going to do some really light financial modeling. I'm going to present some terminology that might be new to a bunch of you. And if I have time, we'll touch on how to do due diligence on investments. We will see because we have half an hour for me. All right, so my results. So I started investing in, there we go. I started investing in single family homes, duplexes. That was my start. I went to Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read that book. I went to their programs, their Rich Dad University. I learned some great stuff. In execution, I lived in California. None of those formulas or rules of thumb worked. So I invested out of state. The before and after, usually the before is the ugly, the after is the beautiful. I bought a beautiful turnkey, wasn't able to manage well from afar. The after is the destroyed picture. I lost money. I sold stuff. I got out of there and I went, oh man, that was exhausting. That was exhausting. Tenants who didn't pay, they were too far away for me to stop over and take corrective action. The property management company was non-responsive to me. I was too small of a fish for them to care. I tried to take legal action. I was too small. No one wanted to pay attention to me. I was on the loan. I had to make the payments. It, all the damage I had to repair out of my pocket, out of my W-2 salary. I was exhausted. But I didn't say, well, investing is not for me or real estate's not for me. I said, there's more self-made millionaires in real estate than anything else. There's got to be a different path that's right for me. And I'm not bashing the path that I took. It's really right for some people. For me, it wasn't. That's when I started studying all the different 15 ways that I'm going to talk about today, ways you can make money in real estate. And I picked one that was right for me. And what that was syndications. And so I started investing in apartment complexes and hotel developments, and I made 18 to 25% annualized returns without doing anything. I wasn't on the loan. I wasn't dealing with the tenants. It was passive. And I said, oh, this is way better. I can live in California and I can own stuff in Dallas. And so not only did I start investing passively, but I started being on the active side, putting together these deals, bringing people in. And that's when I became a self-made millionaire in real estate. It was not a straight line journey. Like I said, I studied a bunch of different things, but I did find my path. So I hope this is the beginning of you finding your path. And so the first step to finding your path is how to determine what kind of investing is right for you. So the next slide I'm going to show has a bunch of things on the screen that are going to look really exciting, a bunch of numbers. And I don't want you to get distracted, because first you need to pick your vision for yourself. So you need to decide, why are you here? Okay, a bunch of you already put that in the chat. But what is really your vision for investing? Are you investing for passive income? Is passive income going to get you to your vision? Or are you building your net worth? Those are really different goals, and you're going to choose really different investments based on those two different goals, right? So you may be retiring next year and you're making $200,000 a year. So you need to figure out how to, replace that income. Well, investing in an apartment new build that doesn't have any income for the first 2 or 3 years and then gives you a big payout at the end, that's not right for you. It's right for someone who, hey, I'm 40 years old. This is money in my IRA or my 401k. I'm not going to touch it for another 25 years. I don't care at all about if it's generating a monthly paycheck. It's in my retirement account. Ooh, do I want to build it with the highest annualized returns I can? Yes. So really think about, is passive income your priority right now? Or is net worth really your priority right now? It's going to change what kind of investment's right for you. And then also be really clear with yourself on what level of effort, excuse me. Let me go back to slideshow. What level of effort you have available to put into your investments. So, there's fix and flipping. You've heard of that. It's great return on your money. It's return on your time. Actually, you're putting in a lot of effort. Totally fine for someone who has the time and the correct skill set for that. For me, I don't have the right skill set for that. How much time are you willing to spend? What level of effort can you support? Think about that and be really clear with yourself. Then be really clear with yourself what level of risk is palatable to you, because there's great investments that are very risky. There's great investments that have very, very low risk. And usually what end of the spectrum you are on is associated or correlated to what stage of life you're in, what stage of earning income you're in. So if you're really looking to, quit your W-2 job, maybe you want something that's a little bit safer, because if you lose some money in an investment, you don't have a paycheck coming in to support your life. So be really clear with yourself before you start getting excited about some of the returns you see out there. And then step 4, really write this down, have your pen and paper. I have my pen and paper here because I know I'm going to learn from the other speakers. And so go ahead, write down your goals, really be clear about when do you need it. So if you're investing for, legacy planning, and you're like, yeah, I want to build my net worth to, $10 million. When is that? In the next 2 years? In the next 20 years? That timeline is going to be really important to help you decide what kind of investing is right for you. And then think about who do you need to tell? That is really important as well. You likely make financial decisions with someone else, maybe a spouse, maybe a financial advisor, maybe a tax strategist, maybe your asset protection planner, attorney. You need to tell them what your goals are so they can help support them. Okay, so my CPA, I asked him once about a 1031 exchange, and he gave me advice. And then later I was like, I don't know why you told me to do that. I learned later about this other thing I would have rather done. And he's like, yeah, but I told you to do that because it would help you do X, Y, and Z. And I said, X, Y, and Z are not my goal. A, B, and C are my goal. That was my fault. I did not tell them that my goals were A, B, and C, not X, Y, and Z. So you need to make sure if you're getting advice from someone, if you're getting advice from a financial advisor, a CPA, an attorney, you need to be really clear with them what your goal is, what's your vision, what's your effort you want to put in, what's your risk, what's your time frame. Write it all down so that you can be consistent in your communication with your whole team, your spouse, your kids, your parents, whoever you're, talking to. All right, so I hope you all wrote that down. Mandatory disclaimer. Actually, Cynthia, I believe if you wouldn't mind trying to stream it, something's going on. I think you're also co-host or co-host, so maybe you can do that for us. Keep saying preparing to stream, so it's not working for me. Mandatory disclaimer. So I'm going to put some numbers up on the screen. They are things that I've seen in the education I've taken from numerous courses and workshops that I've paid, $50,000 to learn from gurus that I've experienced myself when investing. I'm not making an offer to you right now. These are not actual investments. There are always risks associated with any type of investing. Nothing is guaranteed. You can always lose your principal investment. All right, that's my disclaimer. On to the fun stuff. Okay, so we're going to talk about 15 types of real estate investing on the basis of these certain things. So annual ROI versus cash flow. So we talked about that. What is the difference? You're going to want to be really clear when you're looking at investments. It's going to have numbers on it, right? And you want to know what those numbers mean. When does that money come to you? Is it a monthly check? Is it a quarterly check? That would be your cash flow. Annual ROI, that could include cash flow and appreciation. That could be just appreciation. It could be just a lump sum check at the exit. Do you get your principal returned at the exit? These are all questions you need to ask. We're going to also just actually, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of this for all 15, but you'll see it on the screen. And then I have a whole workshop on just this, which I'll send out later. So keep an eye on your email. And if this looks really interesting to you, watch the event that's going to come out later. All right. Actually, I do want to say money needed to get started and hold period, really important. A lot of people don't pay enough attention to this. So investments, passive investments, they'll have a minimum investment number. It might be 100,000. It might be 250,000. It might be 5,000. So think about, for you, what's the kind of chunk that you would like to put your money in? Do you want to put your money out there in $500,000 chunks in different investments, or in $10,000 chunks in different investments? You need to make sure that the investments you're looking at are okay with that and are good for that number. And hold period, this is especially important if you're going into passive investments, because the hold period, like if you go into a hedge fund, which we're not talking about today, but it might say, hey, you need to be in for 1 year before you can pull out any of your money. And then it's a 90-day request to take out some of your money. It might be a fund that says, hey, the hold period 7 years. You put your money in, you get your paychecks quarterly, you get your money back at the end. In between, you can't take out your principal. Some you can take out your principal. So what supports your goals? Be clear to yourself, and then make sure you find investments that match that. Okay, so like I said, here's a chart, and it has a whole bunch of different types of investments, and it has numbers. So it has ROI, it has cash flow, money needed to get started, risk, all kinds of stuff. If this is really interesting to you and you want to dive in deeper, Watch next week. We'll have emails coming out and we'll do a deep dive into this chart for you guys. Okay, so what I do primarily, so at Sugo Capital, primarily, we purchase apartment buildings. We do a couple other types of investments, and we're branching out and broadening because our investor base has asked for that. But primarily, we buy apartment complexes and we syndicate them. So what does that mean? Let me know in the chat if you have invested in an apartment syndication. Write the word apartment in the chat, because I want people to see how common this is. Because if you haven't heard of this before, you might be like, what? I don't want to buy an apartment building. That sounds like a headache. Well, it's totally passive. It's totally passive as syndication. Okay, so if you've never, I see someone say I have not, because you have to be accredited. Well, you don't have to be accredited to invest in apartment syndications. So, yep, okay, great, perfect. So some people never heard of it. And then a lot of people wrote syndication or apartment. So we have a mixture, perfect. So I'm going to go into what is a syndication, and know that my example is going to be an apartment syndication, but know that it could be anything. It could be a retail park syndication. It could be a grocery store syndication. It could be medical office park syndication. So the example is going to be an apartment complex, but know that if you like other things to invest in, like car washes or storage units, you could replace this apartment building with another hard asset. And this structure is still out there. I don't do it, but other people do it. So if you like this structure and this is the idea of a syndication, this is how it works. And you can find operators out there who do this. It's not a unique structure to Sugo Capital. Okay, so say there's this apartment building, we're gonna buy it for $1 million. Well, I wouldn't syndicate it for that price. I would buy it for myself because that's an amazing price. But just for simple numbers, there's a down payment, there's a loan, there's some closing costs. So, okay, so I could, go out and buy this myself, but then maybe I'm out of cash. And so I can only do one. Say I want to do this over and over and over again. I can go out to investors like you guys on this call and say, hey, if you want to participate in this, I'm going to create an LLC, and the LLC will own the apartment building. And then if you invest some money into this project, you can have ownership, you can be, have a piece of that LLC, and that LLC owns this building. So you technically have ownership in this building. Now it's going to be run like a business. So there's a management team, there's a property management team, there's a team that runs all of this. So for the investors, it's completely hands off. So me and my partners, we sign on the loan. The investors don't sign on the loan. The investors don't manage the property management company. The investors don't put in any additional money after they put in their initial investment. So that's, if you're looking for passive investments, this would be a really nice one for you. Okay, so like I said, we go out and we say, hey, investors, we're going to buy this for $1 million. We need $300,000. Okay, and this is how we're going to organize it. So there's going to be general partners, which is me and my business partners, and there's going to be limited partners, which are the investors out there, you. So in this pie represents all the money needed in order to make the investment. And so it's color coded. So you can see the orangey color. That's me and my partners. We put in some money. We get a loan for most of it. And then we need the down payment, and we need some money to fix it up as well. So we go out to the investors and we get some money, and they put in about 30% of the capital needed to close. So like I said, we create an LLC, and the LLC owns this building. So how does the equity work? How does the ownership work in this LLC? Well, we split it 70-30. 70% ownership goes to the investors, and 30% ownership goes to the general partners who are managing it, who are on the loan, who are putting this all together, who found the property, who manage it and do everything. Okay, so you can see the two green pieces of pie are not the same size. So every investment, every syndication, these numbers are going to be slightly different. This is just an example. It's not like a blanket statement for all syndications, but this is roughly the structure. So notice that those green pieces of pie are not equal. So for 30% of the money needed to acquire the asset, investors get 70% ownership of the asset. So that's really cool, because as the asset appreciates, that's really where you get a lot of your return, because you get appreciation on 70% of the asset, not just on 30% of the asset. So that's really cool. I think the structure is such a win-win. And then me and my partners are able to go out and buy multiple apartment complexes, 24, as I said, which is more that I could have bought with the money that's in my bank account. So some terminology you're going to need if you're looking at passive investments like syndications, like funds, REITs, anything, you're going to want to know what targeted cash on cash return means, what a preferred return means. They're different. So cash on cash return means literally how much cash do you get every month or every quarter. So it's the reoccurring revenue. Some people call it mailbox money. It's the checks that you get. Okay. And so I'm going to show in the next slide an example of how this all plays out. Christina is saying investors get 70% ownership. Did I get that right? Yeah, in most of our syndications. Sometimes they're a little bit more or less, but usually it's around 70%. Now double check with every syndicator, because they're going to be different on every project. Okay, that was just an example I gave. Targeted investor annualized returns. So say in this example is 20%. So that annualized return means if you take all the money you received over the entire lifetime of the investment and you divide it by the number of years you were in that investment, what's that number? So it doesn't mean that you get 20% every year in the form of a check. Annualized return means once you exit, what's all the money you've received, cash flow plus appreciation. So it's really important that you understand those differences, because sometimes we get investors like in a fund who say, oh, you know, an annualized return of 20%. So they expect that they're getting a check for 20% every year. And it's not, it's at the exit. A preferred return. So if you see that, I don't have it on here, but a preferred return means investors make that return before the 70-30 split happens, before the general partners receive any payouts. So that's the closest thing you can get to a guaranteed return in this type of investment. Investment profile, if you're looking at syndications, if you're looking at hard assets, if you're looking at real estate, there's going to be value add, there's going to be new build. Based on your goals, it'll help you choose what investment profile will support your goals. So like if cash flow is your priority starting next year, you don't want a new build apartment complex. So you want a value add, or you want a core, something that's going to start producing money for you within the first 12 months, right? So that's why it's important to know your goals. So you can really quickly, there's tons of investments right out there. So you can really quickly look at them and decide what's right. Someone said, hey, I haven't invested in these because I'm not an accredited investor. Well, what that means is, so an accredited investor is someone who either makes $200,000 a year by themselves, or makes $300,000 a year with their spouse, or has $1 million net worth, not including their primary residence. So if you meet one of those three criteria, you're an accredited investor. So pretty much everything is open to you. If you're not an accredited investor, you would look for a 506B. Very important, a 506B. Now, we sometimes offer those. I have business partners who offer those. So even if you're not an accredited investor, you can still participate in funds, in passive investments, in syndications, in most of what we're going to talk about today. So don't go, oh, I'm not accredited, I can't do any of this. You can, you just have to find the right people and the right investments and know what to look for. All right. Like I said, hold period is really important to know. I'm going to use 5 years as an example. Here we go. Let's jump in. So I'm going to use an example of a $100,000 investment over 5 years. Okay, so on the previous page, we said 8% cash flow. So that means that every year you get 8% on $100,000. that would be $8,000 a year. That's simple math, right? Then you'll want to know, is it paid quarterly? Then you get $2,000 a quarter, or is it paid monthly? So, whatever you need to find an investment that pays out according to your needs, right? So if you get $8,000 a year for 5 years, all right, that's $40,000. That is not 20% annualized. So where does that come in? So at the end of 5 years, what have the general partners, what have the managers been doing for 5 years? Well, they've been making the property better. So say the property is 400 units. Well, every year, maybe they're remodeling 100 units every year and then stabilizing the property in the last year. And they have a great property management team in there, great tenants. The property is now beautiful. The net operating income is maximized, and then it's sold as a turnkey apartment building to a REIT or an institutional investor. And then the investors get their principal returned, and they get 70% of the profit. Remember that 70-30 split? So the sale proceeds column at the end of year 5, in this case, say investors get a check for $60,000. That's their portion of the appreciation pro rata on the equity that they have in the LLC in the deal. And then the $100,000 principal investment is also returned at year 5 when the property is sold. So if you take a look at the $60,000 and the $40,000, so that's the proceeds from sale, that's the appreciation and the cash flow, and you add that up and you take a look at, okay, and then you get your principal returned, then at the end of 5 years, your $100,000 would have been turned into $200,000. Okay, so this is when I said on the first or second slide, we're going to talk about how to double your money with no work. This is how to do it. So this is not an actual investment, but this is saying, hey, if you find an investment with these numbers, that's how in a syndication, you could double your money in 5 years. This is really average. It's out there. A lot of people have these types of investments. Now you'll notice, hey, but don't I pay some tax for this? Well, you do pay some tax on it. It depends, because I'm going to go into the next slide really quickly, the different ways you can invest in this. And so I didn't put in the tax consequences because it really depends on how you invest. And then also I do want to say that there is often a 30, well, the tax rules just changed. So now I should change it because it changed this year to 80% is the max. So it's $30,000 to $80,000 tax write-off you could get with these types of investments. So that also affects the tax that you would pay. But if you take that 100,000 and look at the cash you received, the money you actually received, and now you have $200,000, the 100% return over 5 years, 100% return divided by 5 years, that's 20% per year. That's how that 20% annualized return number is calculated. Okay, I'm looking over to the chat to see if there are any questions or if that's clear. Okay, yep, correct. Okay, cool. So that's a model that's really important to understand. How cash flow works over time, how hold period works, so in this example, principal investment is returned. You're going to want to look at each investment to see, is principal investment actually returned? Because in this example it is, in other examples it isn't, so that you can create this for yourself. On our website, sugocapital.com, on the front page, there's an ROI calculator. And so you can put in the numbers of an investment and it will do this math for you. So if you just go to sugocapital.com, it's right on the front page and it says ROI calculator, a big green button, and you can click that and you can get something that will produce what you see on the screen right now. Okay. So yeah, this is a good question. So the proceeds from sale, those will be categorized as capital gains. Okay. Those will be categorized as capital gains. Now, the yearly cash flow is not capital gains. That's income. And then the depreciation and tax benefits, is that every year? Nope, that would be in the depreciation is in the, it depends on the project. So you want to ask for each project, but if there's a cost segregation analysis done in the first year, the majority of your tax write-off will be in the first year. There will also be some losses likely in the second year, if that remodel is going on. So it depends on the investment. So good question. And you'll want to ask. I see some people saying, can we do a 1031 exchange kind of thing here? You can. So I'm going to skip. We have our next speaker who's going to come up. So I'm going to skip over the due diligence part. However, due diligence is super, super important. Okay. So we're going to send this out. I can take an hour to talk about due diligence. So we're going to send it out to everyone who registered Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Watch your email boxes, because one of the days we're going to send you a recording of how to do due diligence on people, market, and property. A lot of times people look at the property or the investment first, and they don't do enough due diligence on the people or the market, which are the really, really important things. So I'm going to give you some more education via your email inbox on how to do that. Thank you for the agenda. That's Cynthia saying, come on, Sarah, it's the next person's time. We got Don coming up on asset projection. Don, I'm just going to do one more slide and then I will hand it off to you. So something really important I want to call out is how do you invest in these types of things? How do you invest in real estate or private investments? So most people think, oh, excuse me, this is from a previous talk. Ignore the little things that say talk to someone. A lot of people think, oh, I need cash. So I need, money to be sitting in my bank account in order to do this. Well, that is just one way. So I could, take $100,000 out of my savings account and invest in the name of Sarah Sullivan in real estate in a syndication. Now there's other ways. So I can use a self-directed IRA. I can use a solo 401k. So if you don't know what these are, I strongly suggest you Google them. A piece of homework on the 3 days that we're going to send out to you guys next week is to look at your 401ks and your IRAs and see what kind of returns you've been getting. Oftentimes people do not pay enough attention to their retirement accounts. And when they go look, they're like, so I had an investor call yesterday and they said, well, I have $900,000 in my IRA. Well, I lost $200,000 in that last year. I'm like, oh, break my heart. You should be making 20% per year, not losing that much per year in your IRA and your 401k. So know that you can turn your IRAs and 401ks into self-directed accounts, and you can invest in almost everything that we're going to talk about today. So if you have money over there that's not performing as you'd like, you can move it into self-directed accounts. I saw someone ask, hey, can I do an exchange? Yes, you can. You can 1031 exchange into syndications. We've structured it as a tenant in common structure, so you can. If you have an exchange, we have opportunities right now that are open that you can exchange into. That's a tax deferral strategy. A lot of people use leverage to invest. That's how the uber wealthy stack their investments, right? Like you have equity in something, you take equity out that's cheap and you invest it in something that's going to make you more money and you really benefit from the arbitrage. So next Friday, you'll get an email in your inbox and it's me doing an example of an arbitrage using cash value life insurance, line of credit on some real estate, different things, and really taking advantage of that arbitrage to make money. All right, so I'm going to take a look. Any questions on this before I hand it over to Don? All right, I'm going to stop sharing and start to introduce Don. So, you guys wrote down some goals. You wrote down some visions. I just talked about passive investing. There's different ways you can do this investing, but how do you keep it all safe? Right? Do you want to put it all in your name? Do you want to put it in the name of an LLC? Do you want to put it in the name of a trust? So you can invest in syndications with us, with a trust, with an LLC, with your nonprofit, with almost anything. But what's the best way for you to keep your investments safe? That's when I step out and say, hey, you can use any vehicle to invest with us. You can use any vehicle most likely to do what David and Katie are going to talk about and the other speakers. But how do you keep them safe? Because a lot of you said you're here for, and Don, you can go ahead and come on camera now so that you're ready to go when I pass it off to you. A lot of you said you're here for legacy planning. You're here for generational wealth. You've either received generational wealth or you want to give generational wealth, right? In order to do that, you have to have your asset protection plan set up. So we have Dawn Pendleton here who's going to talk about that. Dawn, are you able to?
Sarah,
Oh,
I'm in the
there we go.
background, but I can't open my video until you allow it.
Oh, let's see. I definitely want you to turn on your video. All right, does that work?
Let's try it now.
There we go. Oh, I saw you for a
There
second.
we go.
All right,
Went on and
awesome.
off. Okay, there we go. Oh, it's so good
Beautiful.
to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Dawn. Thank you so much for being here. So audience,
And-
we've done several,
Oh, no, and you're absolutely right. There's so many legal tools and all of them work. And ladies, you all know this because you use a butter knife for a screwdriver. I mean, you do it. We do it all the time. But there are tools that are best suited for what you're trying to do. And I think we can help you with that. Thank you.
yeah, and it goes back to, you know, making your goals and then telling your team. So people like Dawn, if they're on your team, you need to tell them what your goals are so that they can give you the best tools to help you reach your goals. Super important. So we've done several events, educational events with Don and his team. Investors love what he has to say. You're probably going to go, oh my gosh, that's so much information. So have your pen and pencil paper ready, but do know that we're going to send out the recording so you can rewatch what Don's going to say because there's going to be a lot of info there. All right, thanks, Don. I'll let you take it away and I'll jump off camera to give you the stage.
Oh, you're awesome. And Sarah, we love the fact that you are you value education so much. And so do we, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
All right, so we are going to cover a lot of ground. Okay, a little background. I've been teaching asset protection for 23, 24 years now. I've managed a hotline, answered tens of thousands of questions, written 5 books on asset protection that are used nationwide. What I don't do, swap presenter screen. Okay, is that better?
Beautiful. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay. So, but I can't give legal advice. I'm not an attorney. I don't know anything about your situation. We've run the longest running asset protection class anywhere in the nation. We're bringing in some of the best of the best of the best attorneys, CPAs, IRA specialists, investors. And we got to get Sarah on our stage really soon. So we haven't done that yet. We call them some of the speakers, we call them America's defensive coordinators. And again, whenever we're talking legal and tax, there's always a disclaimer, sorry, but I can teach general principles, how they apply to you. And if they apply to you, I don't know. And I welcome a lot of our students that I see on here. Thank you for being here. Okay, so if I were to summarize for investors, what I think is the biggest concerns, I call them the America's 4 financial tornadoes, and I'm listing them not in any particular order. Income taxes can absolutely eat you alive, especially for investing. If you're flipping houses, if you're running a business, you have to understand the tax game, because either you're going to understand taxes or taxes are going to eat you alive. Probate and estate taxes. After you've paid your taxes, you've lived your life, you've been a good citizen. If you don't have a better plan, probate and estate taxes are also a threat. But probate and estate taxes are 100% optional if you will use the proper tools in a timely fashion. Jackie Kennedy died with a $93 million estate. We know that not because it went through probate, because she chose to disclose it. 0 in probate, 0 in estate taxes. We can do that if we're given the proper tools in a timely fashion. Capital gains taxes. This one should be an upside down tornado, kind of like a swirly, sucky toilet bowl thing, because it keeps investors from having enough money working for them to do anything good. And you go, well, it's only 15%. No, it's not 15%. There's also excise taxes. There's also most of those that are investors will be paying capital gains at 20% plus whatever your state charges, which can be up to 13% additional. Capital gains taxes can absolutely eat you alive, and lawsuits. Lawsuits is a different type of, it's not always a foreseeable tornado. Comes down, bangs you on the head one day, and you're in the middle of a lawsuit. So we're really concerned about all four of these. Excuse me just a second. So that's really what we teach. I'm going to give you a short overview of each one of these tornadoes and some of the things that we could help you do. If you're going to reduce your taxes, you have to understand two basic rules, maybe three. And one of them is there are toll roads and there are free roads built all the way through the tax system. But there's no blinky sign saying, here's the freeway. No, they only put that on the roads they want you to pay. And so there's a lot of things that are in the tax code that are there, but they're not advertised very well. Let's hit a couple of those. The other thing that's critical you have to understand is that there's two different sets of rules. And I used to think, yeah, one for the rich, one for the poor. It's not that way. It's for those who have a business and those who don't. Very basic. Let me show you how that works. If I received, let's say, $100,000 of W-2 income, I'm an employee. The very first thing that's going to be taken out is my taxes, right? So that leaves me $76,000 if my state and federal taxes are around 27%. That gives me, if $76,000 in net. If my expenses are about $70,000, that gives me $6,000 to save for retirement or to invest. Or it's not a lot of money, is it? And like whoop-de-doo. But let's look at the other set of tax rules, and that is for a business. The same income, $100,000, the same expenses, but now instead of being taxed on the $100,000, I'm taxed on the net, so the $30,000. Therefore, in almost all cases, my taxes will be lower, state and federal. That leaves me a whole bunch more to make to invest, and it makes your ability to do good, do well, make a difference in life a whole bunch greater. So if I can summarize that real quick, if I don't have a business, I'm going to earn it, I'm going to pay the taxes and get to spend whatever's left over. But if I had a business, I could earn it, spend it all, do good things, and then pay taxes on whatever's left over. Well, I really like the left side a whole bunch better than, or the right side a whole bunch better than the left side. But I'm also smart enough to know that I can't call everything in life a business deduction, but that is the overall goal, is to move things from the left side of the screen over to the right side of the screen. And I'll give you some examples of that. Here's the third thing you have to understand is a lot of people think they're winning the tax game because they got a refund this year. Oh my gosh, I'm winning. Whoop, whoop, whoop-de-doo. Has nothing to do with it. You need to start tracking what is my effective tax rate. Let me show you a couple examples. LeBron James a couple of years ago made $124 million and he paid his taxes at 35%. State and federal, that's what he paid. He's a W-2 employee.
Oh my goodness. Ouch.
Look at business owners that have a business and look, they're paying a lot in taxes, billions, some of them, but look at their effective tax rate. And if you're not tracking that every year, I guarantee you're going to be losing money in the tax game. You have to, as all I'm doing is I'm taking my income, I'm dividing it by the taxes that I pay, state and federal. What is your effective tax rate? And if every year it's going a little bit lower, now you're winning the tax game. And I don't know any way to emphasize that better than retirement plans. For individuals, I can save $6,500 in an IRA. Whoop-de-doo. But if I had a business, look at the different plans that are available for business owners. Now I can put $66,000 into retirement accounts. And oh, wait, those are, and all four of these are called defined contribution plans because the IRS or Congress limits your contribution. But there's also what's called a defined benefit plan, where business owners could be putting up to $265,000. And of course, there's exceptions to every rule. Last year, I helped a business owner put $300,000 expense from her business, tax-free to her till she now I can grow wealth. Yes, she's going to pay taxes on it someday, or it's going to be inherited, and there's things that we can do. There's so many opportunities, but they're mainly there for businesses because Congress wants to incentivize business. Here's the number one thing that I think investors are not understanding, and that is the power of real estate losses, because the word scares them. Oh my gosh, I don't want to lose money in real estate. Okay, I get that. And some of you wonder, well, how Donald Trump didn't pay taxes. He was audited every year, but he didn't pay taxes. He was accused of not paying his fair share, but he wasn't accused of tax fraud or tax evasion. Let me show you how this is done. And I'm going to use a very simple example. There's a house not far from where I live. It's available for sale right now. If I were to buy that as a not to live in, but as an investment property, here's the tax implications you would face this year. Okay, and I put down last year because it changed just a little bit. I'll explain that. So here's the numbers for last year. If the land I can't depreciate, the land is an investment. I'll get my money back hopefully someday. But whether the building is there or not, a fire or flood, it doesn't matter. The land is worth something. So we have to split that out. And what I can do is I can take the building, what's in white, divide that by 26.5 because it's residential. If it were commercial, it'd be 39, but it's residential. It's not an arbitrary number. The IRS sets that. So I get a loss in real estate for $16,000. Now, I didn't do anything. If that were the only transaction that happened, I bought a piece of property and didn't make money, lose money, there's no expenses, my tax impact would be a $16,000 loss. Now, what that means is I get to write that $16,000 loss off against all other investment income that I have, even in the stock market. And if I can't use all that, I could write off up to $3,000 in W-2 income. Is there anybody on the call that couldn't use a $16,000 loss in real estate this year? You didn't lose money. Let's be clear. You invested money, and for tax side, you get to claim a $16,000 loss. Well, that's good. But remember too, that this is a turnkey property all ready to go. I didn't have to do anything. Now let's look at it a different way. What if it were a fixer-upper? I'm still going to spend $600,000, but I'm going to really buy it for $350 and put in $250 in repairs and improvements. And the IRS wants you to understand that there's a difference between repairs and improvements. You want everything in life to be a repair. The IRS wants everything to be improvement. You're going to have to figure that out with your CPA, what's what. But here's the way it's going to break down on taxes. Okay, here you go. My depreciation, I'm going to take what's in white, the building and the improvements, 300,000, divide that by 27.5. My losses in real estate is only $10,909. I like the other one better. But wait. What happened to the repairs? If I can put this in service right now, this year, I get to claim all of that this year. Now I have $160,000 loss in real estate. I can write it off against all other investment income, used $3,000 against W-2 income. If I can't use it all this year, it rolls forward to next year and next year and next year. Cool. But it's not good enough. What if we did one other thing? Let's say we brought in a cost seg engineer and go, yeah, I like the 27-year depreciation schedule, but what if we sped it up a little bit? Take more deduction right now, so I have more money to invest in real estate right now. So what we do is we have somebody come out, look at the property and say, okay, or do a virtual tour or something. And they go, yeah, but the carpets are going to wear out in 5 years. The cabinets and the blinds and the wall coverings and all these things we can speed up. And with bonus depreciation, we can claim all of those things right now this year. Ooh, and then we take 15-year assets, things that are going to wear out maybe 15 years. We put a price tag for every tree, every shrub, your parking lot, retaining wall, irrigation system. We say, yeah, but because of bonus depreciation, again, we can claim all of those things right now this year. Oh, baby, you see what we're doing now? Let's plug that back into the numbers. We're still going to invest $600,000 in this property, but it's going to be split up for tax purposes very differently. I'm going to take what's in white, the building and the improvements, and now my loss in real estate is going to show up as $5,000 loss. Okay, but I get to take the repairs. Okay, so I get to claim those this year as long as it's in service, and I get to claim what's in gold. Things I depreciated more quickly right now this year. So now my loss in real estate shows up as $305,000 loss. Now, bonus depreciation is eventually scheduled out. So last year it was 100%. Now it's 80%, but that's only the bonus depreciation, the cost seg, everything else. But still, look at the big picture. I don't know what your numbers are going to be, but what if we could claim a $305,000 loss in real estate and not have to pay any taxes on any of my investment income? Whether it was passive or active, it doesn't matter. You see how Trump says, this is why I don't pay taxes, because I've got so many losses rolling forward. You have to understand the power of real estate losses if you're going to be a powerful investor. Okay, medical expenses. A lot of you are paying too much in medical expenses. Well, I think maybe we all are, but you're not deducting it. Anytime you have a business, which is the intent to make a profit, you can write off your insurance premiums. If you're just a W-2 employee, you can't. But if you have a business of some kind, intent to make a profit, you can. Whether it's an S Corp, C Corp, doesn't matter. If I'm a sole proprietorship, I can write off insurance premiums. And a lot of you are missing that deduction. However, what if I had a C corporation or an LLC taxed as a C Corp, and I had the proper language right out of Section 105 of the Internal Revenue Code, and it's a medical reimbursement plan? I put that into my corporate documents, my bylaws, my resolutions, my corporate meetings somewhere. Now I can deduct 100% of my deductibles, co-payments, herb supplement, anything that's prescribed, medical equipment, vision, dentistry, mileage to and from the doctor, all of those things for you and your dependents, you can write off. And they didn't tell you about that free road, did they? What about children? How can we deduct? How much can we pay a child and them not have to pay a penny in federal income taxes? Yep, and I put it on the board, so it's kind of a stupid question, but $13,850 this year, I could be paying children and for whatever they can do, accounting, bookkeeping, social media consultants, resident morale. If you've got, let's say, as an assisted living, or you've got, they come in and brighten the office better than you can. And then in Brown, these are things like that could be passive. The rules are a little different. The limit's not quite as high. That 13.8 has to be active income, but you could be still doing equipment leasing, license imaging. That Gerber baby made some money somehow. I don't know who got it, but somebody did. And royalties, and there's things that we can do. Find a way to pay kids or grandkids. It doesn't matter. You can pay my grandkids. It doesn't matter. But stop paying taxes at your tax rate and shift it to non-income tax brackets. What's the very first thing I would do with a child or a grandchild? I would create a Roth IRA. It's a triple tax-free environment because there were no taxes going due at the time. It's tax-free growth. They can still use it for college education, first-time home buyer, emergency medical. There's so much that they can do. We had a little gal, 8-year-old, set up on her stand. We were teaching in Orlando a few years ago, and we went, yep, here's what we could do. Katie, what's in your Roth IRA? And she started listing all the investments that are in. Oh my gosh, there's so many tax things that we can teach you. And a lot of you are not looking at the expense properly. Ladies, y'all have purses, right? Stop buying purses. My wife doesn't own a single purse. She owns a lot of computer bags. Computer bags are tax deductible. Purses are not. Vacations, not tax deductible. Big screen monitors for your computer are deductible, but large TVs are not. Your dog is not tax deductible, but a guard dog for your business is. Start looking at things differently. And so I don't have any more time on taxes. I want to get to some of the other tornadoes. We're going to cover a lot. In fact, every speaker at our next 3-day class is going to be talking taxes in some way. And so take advantage of this. I'll tell you a little bit about our summit in a minute. Check out some of the reviews out there, but it is a tremendous 3-day asset protection class. Just a couple minutes on probate and estate taxes. Let me introduce you to my wife's family's little estate. It's Mohonk Mountain Resort. If you're from the east, you might know it. It's up in about 100 miles up the Hudson River. It was one of the great historic hotels, classic. It is. I can't tell you how grand it is. It is a grand hotel. When we stay there, we get a family discount if we're there in the off season. I think last time it was $752 a night. It is a grand hotel. It is a tremendous resort. They were also the founding fathers of Redlands, California. But everything got lost on the California side in probate and estate taxes and attorney fees and trustee fees. And my wife grew up in abject poverty. Parents divorced. They had a couple antiques, but everything in the estate was lost. It was a multi-billion-dollar estate. That I hate probate. I hate estate taxes, and you can avoid those. Most of you understand that at this point in your life, you probably need a trust. But nobody really explains to you how we fund a trust. How do we put stuff into the trust? Because the trust can only control that which it owns. And if it doesn't own it, it can't control it. Those assets will go through probate. So I think most of you understand that your home probably ought to be retitled in the name of the trust, your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts. We kind of get that. Where we tend to fall in our education is I could take an IRA. Let's say I've got kids that are they're not ready to be investors yet. Either they're minor children or they haven't grown a brain yet, or I don't know, whatever. You don't want to dump a lot of money on an 18-year-old kid. You want to, the trust is where you establish your values. We believe in education. We believe in military service or religious service or missionary, whatever you do. Here's what we do, and we reward that accordingly. But we can also take an IRA. For me, I listed myself. It's my IRA. It's for my benefit when I retire. For my wife, she's the contingent beneficiary, and the trust is the second contingent. For my life insurance policy, my wife is the beneficiary, but my trust is the contingent beneficiary, and everything dumps into this big Tupperware bowl that collects everything. Remember your big Tupperware bowl, you never put it in the cabinet empty. You put all the little Tupperware bowls inside of it. There's your trust. But here's what they're also not explaining to you, that every business that you have also needs to be tied to the trust. Who owns your corporation when you die? Unless you tie that down to the trust, who owns your interest in the LLC or the limited partnership? If you don't tie that down in some way to a succession plan, that interest, I own 100% of this business, 40% of this, 20% of this. If you don't have a better plan, those assets will go through probate. And who's going to run the company when it's stuck in 3 years of probate? You're shooting yourself in the foot unless we tie all of those interests down to a trust. I'm going to spend probably 2 or 3 hours at the next summit talking about how to fund the trust. An attorney, Clint Coons, will also discuss that. Scott Estel will also address that. We spend a lot of time on that. All right, I got to keep moving fast. Capital gains. I don't have a lot of time to talk about capital gains taxes. But capital gains taxes can absolutely kill an investor. And I wish I had time to go through it. We'll have to do that another time with Sarah and go through some analysis of what capital gains are really eating out of your estate and out of your investments. But let me just say that at the next summit and every summit that we teach, we're always going to cover at least 9 to 11 different capital gains avoidance strategies. Capital gains are a little bit like probate and estate taxes. They're optional. What if I use tax-free environments and I grow my wealth? Remember when Mitt Romney ran for president and announced that screen sharing has been stopped because of external display. Whoops, something happened. Hey, Kendall, would you wander in here? My screen just died. Let me shift it. Okay, this monitor went off and I lost my. We can shake the cords and see if we can get that back.
At least we
Capital
still
gains. What's that?
At least we still see you.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. Okay, so we capital gains, if we're using the proper tools, again, in a timely fashion. Let's say I'm buying and selling in IRAs. There's no capital gains in IRAs. The problem was getting money sometimes into those accounts. Let me see if I can shift screens. Since we're having problems with one of my monitors, how do I get? Can't find my. While you're working on this, I can't even find my mouse. It must be on the other screen. We're ripping my desk apart right now as we're trying to figure this out.
Your mouse back now?
Well, while you're figuring out, I do want to
Okay.
point out, we put the link for Don's event that he's talking about in the chat. And it's
Okay,
a really good event. There's a lot of knowledge. You can see Alvin said he went to the event, it changed his life. So like Don said, there's so much to talk about. That was just the tip of the iceberg, what he's been talking about. So I encourage you guys, if you're like, oh, this is something that I need to learn about, because great, I've been stacking my investments, but there's a smarter way to do it. And I encourage you to go to that event and learn about the structures and all that kind of stuff, because it's like Alvin said, it could change your life.
Good. All right, can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so enough time on capital gains taxes. Just know that we can help you, and not always. Sometimes people call and say, I just sold my $2 million farm. What can you do? Well, I can't help you at this point. You're a little late. We've got to do things before, but there's so much we can do to avoid. You build a business. There are some businesses, if we put into the structure right initially, we tax it as a C corporation. Yes, you might pay a little bit more taxes, but when you go to sell it in 5 or 10 years, there's no capital gains because you structured it right. Oh my gosh, there's so much we can teach you. All right. So the next 2 classes we have, by the way, are, one is coming up in 2.5 weeks. It's June 12th, 13th, 14th. The next one is in July. They are both live stream classes, so you don't have to attend, but these are classes we used to charge $3,000 to attend. We don't do that anymore. It's a Zoom class. It doesn't cost, we don't have to travel, buy cookies and sodas and we don't have to send everybody there. It's a live stream class, but here's what we ask. And is that if you're going to come learn tax and legal strategies, give us 3 days. The theme of our class is a lifetime to accumulate, 3 days to protect. You have to give us 3 days. Don't come in and learn half of a legal strategy because it makes you dangerous. And it can be, again, it's like shooting yourself in the foot. Don't do that. Give us 3 days and we're very, very good at teaching asset protection. Okay. When you go to that website, protectwealth.com/Sugo, here's what you're going to find. It's a simple thing. Just we're going to ask for the least amount of information we can to get you registered. Select which event you want to attend, either the June or the July event. It's very simple. Okay. Lawsuit protection. I've got just a couple minutes, but I wanted to spend some time on this. 2 definitions you have to understand if you're going to have for investments. Have to understand corporate veil protects you from the business. We all know the term, but some of us don't really understand what it means. Let's say a lawsuit happens in your business. What we want is we want a proverbial brick wall protecting your family's assets, your home, your cars, your everything. So we want to contain the risk inside of that corporation, carry good insurance, and hopefully, but protect the officers and directors. The goal is to attract all liability in there and contain it so it doesn't leak out. There's 2 different types of businesses that will allow us to do that. One is a corporation, one is an LLC. And it doesn't matter if it's single member, multi-member, manager managed, member managed, multi-member, it doesn't matter. LLCs have the ability to contain risk. But here's the problem is we're going to use this as a management company. Again, the problem is, according to Cornell University, most small businesses completely fail at keeping the basic formalities. Therefore, there is no corporate veil protection because you're not keeping your minutes, meetings, resolutions, you're commingling funds, you're not having a separate bank account, you didn't pay the filing fee on time, you didn't keep it properly funded. You've got to be able to keep the corporate veil, keep the formalities for your corporate veil to be strong. Otherwise, a lawsuit is going to come after you and your personal assets. That's a big deal. And we're going to spend some time at the 3-day summit, how to keep the corporate veil strong. What do you actually have to do? And what is kind of, the corporate stamp? We don't do that anymore. The seal, what's necessary, what's not to keep that corporate veil protection. There's a whole different type of protection, and it's called charging order. And this, most of your accountants and attorneys don't understand this, but it's critical. Because what if the lawsuit comes another direction, didn't come to the business, comes to you personally, you're personally named in a lawsuit. Now our goal is to protect your business interests. Can they take away my corporation? If you have a corporation that stock is in your name, yes, it's vulnerable. We don't want to do that. What about my home and my bank accounts, my brokerage accounts, and all of that stuff? It would be vulnerable without a charging order protection. So the goal here is to protect your business interests and your personal and business assets from any personal lawsuits. This is called charging order protection. And there's 2 different types of legal entities that give you charging order protection. They are multi-member LLCs, meaning more than one owner, not a single member LLC. Single member LLCs don't provide charging order protection in 44 states. So multiple members is like legs of a stool. The more legs you have, the stronger this becomes. And family limited partnerships. That we always want to use for a real estate holding company or an investment holding company. I'll show you some examples, but there's so many cases, and we can give you exactly why. A multi-member LLC provides better protection. A single member LLC is considered an alter ego of you. It's just you. It's disregarded by a lot of the courts. There are 6 states that offer charging order protection for single member LLCs. We like Wyoming because you can have assets in there and the member of the manager of the LLC is never disclosed. It's not a matter of public record. So you could have billions of dollars, doesn't matter. It's not going to show up on a personal asset search. You're not going to look like the low-hanging fruit if for a plaintiff's attorney, because they're not going to see the assets. You see that? If we can hold assets and have anonymity, that's sometimes half the battle is of avoiding lawsuits, is they don't see the attractive assets out there. There are some essential clauses, and I'm not going to go into that because my time's up. You have to have inside of your LLC. And most of you, I'm sorry, don't even have an operating agreement. You got permission from the state to exist. That was called the articles of organization. You got an EIN number, but you never signed an operating agreement. And all of these critical clauses that you need in there to have good charging order protection, you didn't add because you used an internet form or an estate planning attorney or somebody that doesn't know asset protection. Okay, so now here's what we're going to try to do is we're going to wrap all this together. Here we go, and we're going to combine your asset protection, your estate planning. Here's a couple of little diagrams. For most of you, having an operating company is critical to saving money on taxes. You have to, again, business, you have to do that. If you have investments, we would always want you to have a multi-member LLC, and then everything and assign by contract any risk up to a management company. We're going to shift all liability away from your investments up to a management company that doesn't own anything. You take the little $5,000 checking account in my cell phone, but there's no attractive assets. But we're going to shift as much money down to the investments where it would be passive by nature and save you right off the top 15.3% on self-employment taxes. Everything would fall into your revocable living trust. All the stock of your corporation would be assigned out of your name to the trust. All your rights and interests in the LLC would be assigned to the trust. So the trust becomes your big holding company, your big Tupperware bowl. You see sort of how that works. If you have multiple properties, that's okay. We don't want to, when we have a lot of properties, maybe we use single member LLCs nested inside of a multi-member LLC. Oh, that we could do that. What if I have both safe assets and real estate assets? Yep, I could do that. There's so many legal structures we could teach you, but we don't have any more time. Sarah gave me a half an hour. I'm trying to cram in as much as I can. There's so much more. I'd like to talk to you about sophisticated LLCs. What if I wanted all the capital gains avoidance, but I wanted I needed the losses that came from real estate, but my partner needs the income. Can we structure it that way? So many more tax ideas, how to create anonymity in your structure, the best states to incorporate, probate and estate taxes. I really didn't talk much about funding and how to do it, sources of lawsuits, tax planning. Really invite you to come to our 3-day summit where there's so much more we can teach you. This is what we do. Next two events, June 14th, 15th, 16th. No, I lied. June 12th, 13th, 14th. There we go. In July. You would sign up at protectwealth.com/Sugo. This is not a wussy little class. You look at the agenda and it's on our website, and it is a well-structured class. We're bringing the heavy hitters, the best in the industry to teach you asset protection. Love to have you join us. Sarah, that's all I got.
I appreciate it. I mean, that was a lot of information. I just signed up for the July event because I think I was only able to attend one of the days like a year ago. So like you said, you need 3 days to learn it all because the half of a strategy is not, it's not adequate. So I'll see everyone else there too.
Sarah, thank you for the format. We love working with you. We love working with your investors, and we feel very confident in what you're doing. Thank you for hosting this.
Yes, thank you, Don, for being here. All right, up next we have Frank. Frank Rolfe. Okay, let me just, Don, I just closed out your screen for you. And I'll go ahead and introduce Frank. Thanks for being here, Frank.
Thanks for inviting me, Sarah.
Yeah, glad to have you. So you were not at the very beginning when I did my talk, but I did talk about structures of syndications and structures of passive investing. So you guys, Frank is going to talk about a form of real estate investing that you might not have known about. It was on my chart that I scanned through. I talked about 15 ways to make money in real estate. And one of those was mobile homes, but I didn't dive into it. But I did say we're going to be having some other speakers who are going to have some time to dive into these different types of investments. How to do it passively, I believe, is what you're going to talk about for the investors. So I'm glad you're here, helping people kind of see some new types of investing. Who are types of investing that you're going to talk about? Make sure to share with them, who is this good for? Who is it not good for? Because I'm really passionate about, it doesn't mean it's a good or bad investment. It just means, is it the right fit or not the right fit?
Sure.
I had people in the beginning write out their goals and what was important to them in investments, so that when they see what each of us talk about, they can say, ooh, that one is aligned for my goals and my vision, and that sounds really good. So again, thanks for being here, Frank. And I'll let you tell us more about your story, what you do, how you do it, and the knowledge you have to share with us.
Sure, sounds great. And let me first apologize. Last night I woke up with a horrible flu, so my voice is, I know, but it's okay. I'll get over it, but I apologize for my gravelly voice. So, the sector I'm going to be talking about is one that I'm sure most people have very, very little knowledge of, as I also had zero knowledge when I bought into it. And that is the good old classic trailer park, mobile home park, manufactured home community, whatever you want to call the thing. I know everyone has seen them. You've driven by them. You might know someone who's lived in one or a relative who lived in one, but you probably never have thought about investing in one. And so I wanted to, bring you up to date on how that works, what it's like, what the opportunities are, what the problems are. So I'll be focusing on the park side, which is the land ownership side. I'll talk a little bit about the mobile homes as well, but predominantly for most people, the big money is in the actual land, and that is the mobile home park. So let me tell you initially my story of how I got into it. So I got out of Stanford University out in California, and with a degree in economics. Yeah, and so I wanted to start a business to then use that on my application to business school, because this is back in the late 70s, early 80s. Your goal in life was to go to Harvard Business School or something comparable, and they gave greater weight to applications where you had started a business, so you could write about actually doing a business as opposed to just reading a book. So I started a billboard company with a goal of a 1-year business. I was going to start it, build it up, and sell it within a year. And what happened was, it wasn't like the Steve Jobs story or something, or Bill Gates, but I kept building billboards throughout the year. And I just stuck with that for 14 years. And then 14 years later, I was able to sell that to a public company, which is now known as Clear Channel. So I then had to reinvent myself at the age of 31. And what I did was I called the 300 or so property owners, business owners that I had built billboards on for all those many years. And in talking to one of them, a guy named Ron, he offered me his mobile home park right on the spot for $400,000 with $10,000 down. He would carry $390,000 for 30 years. So all I knew about the trailer park was I thought it was gross, weird. I hated it when we built the billboards on it. I thought the tenants were very scary, but I could not pass up the offer of $10,000 down to own a 83 space mobile home park on the side of Interstate 35 in Dallas. So I went ahead and did it. And then I went out and I self-managed that park for a year. I got a little tiny trailer in the park, had nothing else to do at that time. And basically learned the business from doing that. And what I learned about the business was, number one, there's no competition to it, because they don't allow new mobile home parks to be built. And they haven't for about 50 years now. So unlike self-storage and apartments and retail, where you're always competing with each other, in the park business, you compete with nobody. So we have pretty much the biggest moat in the world. I know Warren Buffett loves moats. Mobile home parks have the best moat. It's illegal to build a mobile home park today in almost every city, county in the United States. So the assets are very rare. That was
Wait,
the first thing I
really?
noted.
So there's no more production basically of this product.
Correct. Yeah. In the entire United States annually, they estimate there's not even 10 new mobile home parks built. That's with everyone trying to get rezoning and everything else. So yeah, there's about 100 parks torn down each year for redevelopment. So we're actually an endangered species. We're shrinking as an industry slowly. So that was my first big takeaway of Glenhaven was, wow, I got no competition. Next big takeaway was there's a lot of poor people out there, because when I ran my very first ads trying to rent some vacant homes in Glenhaven, I put them in the Dallas Morning News in the classified section, and my phone rang so much that it was amazing. And when I was renting billboard space, it would take typically 100 sales calls to rent a billboard. Now I had people chasing after me. That was a pleasant change. So I really liked that. Next thing I learned was that a lot of these moms and pops had horribly mismanaged the businesses. So in the case of Glenhaven, he was charging a rent that was less than half of market rent for no apparent reason other than he just didn't pay attention, didn't care to change it or do anything. So that was kind of shocking. And I knew that when you have lots of demand and a capped supply and no restraint on your pricing, that is a recipe to be able to boost the rents a lot. So that's what I started doing. So I just started raising the rents at Glenhaven annually. I'd raise them about $50 a month per lot. I just kept repeating that movie. And 7 years later, I sold Glenhaven for $1,525,000, which was about $1 million more than I'd paid for Glenhaven to begin with. Meanwhile, along the way, I started buying up more mobile home parks under the exact same formula. I bought broken parks and basically fixed them, raised the rents, filled the vacant lots, filled the vacant homes, cut the costs, just kept repeating that movie. 2010, I started doing it with my now partner, Dave Reynolds. And we've ranked as high as the 5th largest in the US, but we own about 175 mobile home parks in about 28 states. Portfolio values over $1 billion. Yeah. Portfolio's over $1 billion now.
Yeah.
And we did that just one park at a time. And so if people would then say, well, gosh, how does that work again? Well, it's simple. People have a stigma against mobile home parks, as I did myself when I got in the business. I thought mobile home parks were nasty. I had never known anyone who'd lived in one. I had no family that lived in one. So all my perceptions came from the media of shows like Trailer Park Boys and that kind of stuff. So most Americans won't touch this asset class. So it's a real sleeper, because unlike flipping houses and other things that everyone's interested in, or there's a lot of programming on TV, in our industry, there's virtually none. So that's the first positive, is that you have to overcome that stigma, and that stigma is what really creates the opportunity. So if people weren't afraid of mobile home parks, there wouldn't be a lot of opportunity, because everyone would have already bid them up to what the values truly are. But instead, you're typically not competing with many people when you're out looking to buy them. Most of your mobile home park owners are old moms and pops, either the original builder or someone who's maybe the second owner. So over the years, they've lost their energy, lost their desire. So there's tons of money left on the table on these transactions. It's not uncommon to buy a mobile home park, even down in Austin. We bought a park in Austin that the park across the street rent was $600 a month. The park we bought was at $250. And you would think that's impossible. Why would the guy at $250 not go to $600, since the guy across the street was at $600? But that's the unusual way moms and pops often manage their businesses.
Yeah.
So,
exactly what we do in multifamily is you want to buy from
Right.
the person who's the mom and pop
Exactly.
who's
So
not maximizing it, and you go and you
That's right.
maximize. Yeah.
Yep. So
Exactly.
very, very broken playing field.
Yeah.
Financing on these deals is also, you would think it was difficult, because in the 90s, it was very difficult. But today, banks love mobile home parks because we have the lowest default rate. So we have access through seller financing, bank financing, conduit debt, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you name it. All the good debt products are at our fingertips. Sam Zell, who died a few days ago, was the largest owner of mobile home parks in the US, as he was the largest owner of apartments and office. So he kind of paved the way on a lot of the financing products. But it's an asset that you don't have a lot of competition. There's lots of money in it. Financing is pretty easy. There are parks in every state except Hawaii. There's about 44,000 in the US total. So there's just a lot of opportunity, and most people do not know it's there.
Yeah. So Frank, how do you work with people? Do you kind of teach people how to do it actively themselves, or you invite investors into funds or syndications with you?
Well, we've been doing this for so long and been so dominant. We do a little bit of everything based on what people are trying to do.
Yeah.
So we've been teaching people actively how to buy and operate mobile home parks since I think about 2007. So we're almost 20 years of doing that. And along the way, of the top 100 largest park owners in the US, a third of them started with our class. So it must work.
It must work.
It must work, yeah. But at the same time, back in 2010, we started doing Reg D funds on mobile home parks for those who wanted to have more of a passive structure on it.
Mhm.
You also can be a hybrid, active and passive. You can buy a mobile home park on your own, but you can have, there's a third party group called M. Shapiro that can manage it for you. So there's kind of a hybrid link between them.
Mhm.
I know people who own their own parks, have invested in our funds, have owned parks with Shapiro. So it's really a wide open playing field that really, it's very, very adaptable. Parks come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Our smallest we've owned, Dave at one time owned a 10 spacer. I once owned a 15 spacer. So you have little tiny parks, even sometimes sub 10 lots, up to very large parks. We have a park we sold recently that was 750 lots total. So that's basically a city. But, regardless of your pocketbook or the capital you have to put down, there are parks laying around out there. Again, my first park, Glenhaven, was $10,000 down. The second park I bought was only $5,000 down. We've done 12 $0 down deals over these last 30 years. So there's lots of potential in that.
And when you talk about, shifting your image or, what you think about them. So you said you went to Stanford. So we lived in Silicon Valley. My husband worked at Google, and one of his friends said, "Oh, come over after work for dinner." And there's a mobile home park right next to Google, full of Google employees living in the mobile home park.
Yep.
And I was like, really? People want to live in a mobile home park in the middle of Silicon Valley? And yeah, and then once I started looking, I was like, actually, there's quite a few mobile home parks in Silicon Valley, right in Mountain View,
Yep.
between Google and Stanford.
Yeah,
And
that's correct.
so, like you
Yeah.
said, there's all shapes and sizes of. It's really a
Yeah,
big deal.
even Stanford itself had a student housing mobile home park right near the quad, 160 mobile homes. All of those parks are parts of the GI Bill. That's where they came from.
Mhm.
So the Army at the end of the war, they brought out the GI Bill. The Army at that time owned 500,000 mobile homes, which it had assimilated during World War II.
Mhm.
So what they did was they distributed those for free to all those parks near those colleges, and built parks near the colleges, and all those remnants still are there. Now, the Silicon Valley parks you're talking about, one of those sold recently for $240 million. So those are insanely
I don't
expensive
think they
assets.
bought it for 10K down.
Yeah, but it's still it's the right spirit of it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And Cynthia's in San Diego. She said there's a lot there too. So I wonder if those are also part of the GI Bill. There's a big military community in San Diego.
Well, it started with the GI Bill. That was where most of the early parks came from.
Mhm.
And then after that, HUD, well, if you've ever seen, I don't know if people have seen this or not, there's a movie called The Long, Long Trailer with Lucy and Ricky Ricardo from I Love Lucy fame. It's all black and white movie. And
Yeah.
in the movie, Ricky Ricardo is a Manhattan-based architect who leaves his penthouse in a skyscraper to live in a trailer park. And then if you see in two of the Elvis movies, I think one's called Speedway, the other one's called at the World's Fair or something. Both in the 60s, Elvis lives in mobile home parks in both movies because mobile home parks had higher demographics in the 50s and 60s than stick-built houses did. And so as a result, people in the US government thought that mobile homes were going to be the wave of the future because it just seemed that all these guys from the GI Bill who went on to become doctors and dentists, they lived for probably a decade in mobile homes when they were establishing the practices. And the government, they got all psyched up on it. So they started a program through HUD to build mobile home parks back in the 60s. And it was a really sweet deal. If you would agree to build a mobile home park on your farm, they would give you 94% loan to value financing, fixed rate for 40 years.
Nice.
So a huge number of farmers and just mom and pop builders took advantage of that government program. And then that culminated in the government taking over the mobile home manufacturing industry in 76. So a lot of what you see from mobile home parks all stem from the federal government, both the early GI Bill parks to the HUD parks and now to manufacturing.
Very, very interesting. I had no idea. I have a couple other questions for you, Frank. So in the beginning, when we were talking about like choosing what type of investment is right for you, we talked about, you know, cash flow versus appreciation. So in some of your examples, you gave some numbers around the appreciation that you were able to experience and materialize for yourself. I know that the economy is always changing, rents are always changing, life is always changing. But can you share roughly like a range that people can expect in the form of what kind of cash flow would they get for investments and what kind of appreciation could they experience? Also, what's like a typical hold period? Are they longer or shorter? So people
Sure.
can
Well,
kind
let
of
me
decide,
first.
like, oh, that might
Yeah.
fit. Yeah.
Yeah, let me give you the basic business model because it's a very, very simple model. I get asked all the time, you know, how could you make 100,000 a year with a mobile home park? Well, you would buy basically any 80 space occupied park you could find that could just barely cover the mortgage, step one, but that you can raise the rents $100 a month, which in our industry is not too difficult.
Yep.
And then you're at 100 grand. And if you're 100 grand of cash flow enhancement, you're at a value enhancement of probably about $1 million to $2 million based on cap rate. So most of the money in our industry is all based on pushing rents. The other items we do, filling lots, those are one-time things, but raising rents seems to be the perpetual golden goose. And the average lot rent in the US on mobile home parks is only about $300 a month. But yet in many of the markets that have been worked more aggressively like Denver, it's $900 a month. So we think that probably most mobile home park rents can double probably in the next five years or so. You'll see most of them double. So your typical deal you might find, again, they're in all different kinds of size categories.
Yep.
You know, if you bought a 50 space park that you could raise the rent $200 over the years, that would get you to about 100 grand a year cash flow. 80 space park, same story. But in our industry, most people will not enter unless they think they can get a 20% rate of return. So that's a cash on cash return. And that's a blend of both cash flow and then the sale at the end. But that's kind of our target with what we buy, what most people buy.
Perfect. That's good to know. And then the hold period, I know if you own it yourself, then you can hold it as long as you want. But is there like a typical turnaround time?
Yeah, most people hold assets, and we have on all of our early funds and everything we've done has been typically a hold period of about 5 to 7 years. What happens is you buy the park, it's a dump, you start cleaning it up, you start filling it up. And then when you get to about year 5, typically your rents are at market, you're pretty much full. And then you season it a little bit, and then typically you either refinance it or sell it. So you kind of make a decision whether you want to hold it for another decade or if you don't. And if you don't, then you go to sell it. And then some people, as we do, every time someone calls and makes us an offer, we look at it and we say, would we buy it ourselves at that price? And if the answer is no, then we sell it. So we've been pretty fluid buyer or seller because we've owned parks literally for a month or a year, and we suddenly get an offer of much more than we paid for it, and we take it.
There you go. And then do you kind of roll it using 1031 exchange? And if you have investors in, can they roll with you?
Well, I know this sounds weird because I know, you've got people all kinds of different perspectives on things. We've never really been big proponents of 1031. We do it if we have another property in hand,
Mhm.
but there's so many cases of people when they try and do a 1031, they in their efforts to get something in the time frame, they buy something of lesser value. And taxes right now are very low historically. So we're perfectly fine paying capital gains tax and then reinvesting, but we also do 1031. It just depends if we have something that we at that point we're already buying.
Yeah, very cool. So you guys in the audience, was that like, whoa? Like I didn't know all of this existed. I didn't know it was an option, didn't know the history. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. And then Frank, I'm sure people would like to get in touch with you to continue learning. Yeah, it was great, wasn't it, Marlon? What's the best way for people to continue to learn with you if this fits what they're looking to do with their investments?
Sure. It's very easy. We were very early entrants into the internet. So we were able to obtain the domain mhu.com, which stands for Mobile Home University.
There
So
you
if
go.
you just go to mhu.com, you will find me and a giant amount of information. Some of it free, some of it not free. But I think we have somewhere around 1 million words in print there. And I think maybe 500 hours of audio and video. So more information than you can handle.
Wow. Awesome. Well, I'm seeing a lot of people are putting in the chats, but you're choosing hosts and panelists. So not everyone's seeing it, but they're saying great information, blew my mind. So interesting. Thank you for that. So
You bet.
Yeah. So I'm going to say thank you, Frank. And Cynthia, if you could put that link in the chat, that would be awesome. And then everybody, we're going to send out the replay and we'll have the contact information for all the speakers. So if you heard something and you're like, I definitely need to learn more because that fits what my goals are, then I invite you to go ahead and contact the speakers, Frank, etc.
Yeah, let me also add real quick, we've got our next boot camp coming up a week from this weekend. It's June 2nd through 4th. It's
Oh, okay,
live
cool.
and virtual. So if anyone wants to look into attending that, if you go to the mhu.com website under books and courses, you click on that, there'll be information on that there.
Oh, perfect. Yes, please do. So you've heard everyone who spoke said, and if you want to learn more, here's a 3-day event.
Right.
But they're not conflicting, so you can attend to all of them. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Well, thank you, Frank. I appreciate your time. I hope you feel better and get well soon. I appreciate that you jumped on anyway. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your opportunities with everyone on here.
Thanks. It sounds great. Thanks for having me. Hope everyone learned something. All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good one, Frank.
All right.
All right, David and Katie. Nice to meet you guys. How are you doing today?
Hey, Sarah,
So
better
good
than
to
ever.
meet you too. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, thank you for being here. So audience, David and I are in a mastermind together down in Florida called Board of Advisors. And we were chatting about, what we are really passionate about is we've made incredible strides, changed our lives due to real estate investing. And so we're really passionate about teaching people what we've done, what works, so that people can take that same path if it's right for them, given their goals. So David, we were on in the beginning, and Katie, I believe you were as well, where I was going over, investments are not necessarily good or bad. It's more they a good fit or not a good fit. So I know you guys do a bunch of different things in real estate and you teach a bunch of different things. So I'm excited to kind of hear from that lens. How can people, be confident when choosing, which there's so much stuff out there. What's right for me and who's the right person to choose what you guys do and how do you do it and share all that. So thank you for being here and sharing.
Absolutely. You're so welcome. And thank you for having us, Sarah. This is actually what we love to do, is just share what has been such a huge blessing in our life and has given us the freedom and abundance of life that we just want to help as many other people know about, tap into, equip themselves, their families, and the people around them. So thank you for all that you do and creating these platforms and these forums for people to learn from life professors, what we call them, right? You know, the
Yep.
people who have the life you want and they're willing to profess to you the
Mhm.
path to walk into that promised land for you and your family. And so,
Mhm.
so we're excited to be here, and we've been here live all day today, listening in to you and all the
Yes.
speakers,
Oh my
which
goodness.
it has been incredible. So thanks
So
to all of you as well, the speakers here.
Yes.
We're taking notes, learning, screenshotting, and students alongside all of you. And I know you're the same way. And that's why you're so successful. I mean, so that's the first key for everyone listening to this now and on replay. I mean, you look at Sarah, you look at these other speakers, you look at anyone who you would aspire to be like or have the fruit of their life in that area of life, financial freedom, whatever it is. From our experience and observations, most of the people who we would consider truly successful, not in one area of life, they're making millions of dollars, billions of dollars, but they're bankrupt in their marriage and their health and their spirituality. And I don't see that as success at all. And so for us, it's holistic, it's lifestyle, living life by design, which Sarah mentioned at the very beginning. So I was so excited. But yeah, Sarah, we hit it off immediately in the mastermind. We're like, how can we collaborate, help each other, help more people? And here we are already. So we're excited for all the things in the future together as well to work with you, your team, investments, deal partner, all the things. So this is the beginning. But so yeah, for all of you listening though, just take that, realize that the most successful people we've ever met are intentionally the best learners,
Mhm.
meaning they keep that beginner mentality. They keep that childlike curiosity and excitement to learn the things that you want to learn. Not like in school, maybe where you despised learning, but the things that you are most excited to learn, like you're here today, financial freedom. I mean, how exciting is that to live the life of your dreams and beyond, which is what Sarah has shared, what we're here to share about. But before we dive into that, baby, just want you to say anything you want to say and hello to everybody.
Well,
And you guys didn't get to meet, I guess, Sarah. And
No, I didn't meet Katie. Hi, Katie.
no, I was at Q1 of our mastermind, but I wasn't able to attend except for Friday with that brunch, which was amazing. But it's so great to meet you. I've seen you in passing and just love what you do. It's amazing to hear all the gold that you poured out and just what you've been able to accomplish. It's so exciting and it's so inspiring. And, you know, just to dovetail what David was talking about, being a perpetual learner, just being hungry for truth, hungry for knowledge, is there's humility that is needed when we want to be learners, because we have to admit to ourselves that we actually don't know everything. And that's what I love about getting in masterminds with summits like this. All of you here have that level of humility or you would not be here. So I just want to congratulate each of you watching live and on replay right now, that you took this time and invested in yourself, and everything that we've been learning thus far today can reap perpetual forever benefits.
Yeah.
It's knowledge and insights that you can pass down to your children. So, any of us on the path to financial overflow and everything that you guys are talking about and that we're going to get into today, it requires that level of understanding that we don't know everything and that we can always learn more and more and more as we go down this path of life.
so true, baby.
And I want to add to that, because one of the biggest things that I've learned in the past 10 years is that you can learn so much from people online. And, it took me a while. It took several years of watching people online and being like, can I really do what they're doing? Or are they just saying something that's not real? But then when I started coaching with people and learning from people and putting it into action, it's all real. I mean, not everyone's out there. You have to do your due diligence on the people you're listening to, but there is so much real information out there. And so once I had that mindset, then it's like, oh, I can take something I learned, turn it into a benefit in my life. And now we're doing all this random stuff, like buying banks, buying YouTube channels, buying e-commerce companies, because if someone else can do it, you can do it, right? And once you learn that about yourself and you realize what you can do, then you're a lifelong learner and you just continue to expand and grow.
100%. And I love what you said that, Sarah. And I would add to that, what we teach all the time is tell people that, you're already attracting and will continue to attract into your life what you focus on. So if you focus on lack, you're just going to get more lack and limitations. If you focus on freedom and abundance, that's what you're going to attract in your life. I mean, that's how God created life. And that's why you see the fruit of that in Sarah's life, these other speakers' life, in our life. We're a product of the process and the product of the environment we put ourselves in, because your thinking right now is a conditioned thinking programming system in your mind from the thinking that you have yourself around. Friends, family, people, media, everywhere.
100%.
That's driving your life.
Yeah.
So that's why you guys are here. You're the few, right, that are here learning some things to step out of what we call the matrix, the land of limitations, into the land of limitless living, which is what we're all intended to live in. So we're excited to share some practical things and some slides we'll run through just to help from things we've learned and applied in our lives that can be powerful levers for you guys and gals to apply in your own life. I see in the chat, Beverly, Kathy, Akura, Dave, Held. Hey to all of you. I know we have a lot of people from our audience who found out from the emails and everything that are in here. So this is great. And this is part of what our process we call collaborative leveraging is happening right now, right? Because of you guys, because of us meeting Sarah and having a conversation with her on how can we collaborate. Now we get to leverage relationships and networks in to expose you guys to, right? And vice versa. And so that's the beauty of the abundance and how it works.
And I know, Sarah, you had asked the question of, there are so many people out there talking about this kind of real estate, that kind of real estate, for all of everyone watching, what would we advise is like the best way to get into real estate investing? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's one thing, but I mean, I can go ahead and get off camera if you guys have slides, give you the stage and I'll let you dive in.
Yeah, whatever. I just wanted to make sure
If you had
that
some,
we answered.
specific questions you wanted to lead us into as well, we're open and flexible. We're easy on that.
I think go for it. Go for what you have prepared. I want to hear more about what you do, how you do it, and what you teach people.
Okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
Thanks
And
so
so
much,
just so
Sarah.
we honor the time, I know we had a scheduled time and things have been a little different. What time do we need to be wrapped up?
There's only one more speaker, and it's okay if let's give you a full half hour. Cynthia, if you can just ping Tanisha and see if Tanisha can start, jump on at 11:20, 11:25.
Okay,
And that'll be good.
perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. So the thing we focus on, and this is what set us free years ago, and we've been able to live life full time, is really the financial freedom that real estate has provided us, and through collaborative leveraging. So we just want to highlight a few things that you guys can learn and take action on that can be really powerful for you. So, what we say, a lot of people talk about cash flow, and that's an important thing to look at. There's a lot of different things about cash flow, but what we've found is that cash flow is not the answer. What is the answer is cash overflow, right? And so, cash flow, there could be many forms. If you've got $1,000 a month coming in while you sleep money, that's cash flow, right? Or $500 a month or $2,000 a month, but that's not going to be life-changing to really take the limits off and let you step into what we feel everyone really needs and wants, is cash overflow, where you have the freedom to live your life full-time, maximally with no limits, to have the time and resources to really live your greatest passions, purposes, dreams, callings. And so that's what we focus on, is how to leverage real estate to accomplish that for any person, right? Through the process of collaborative leveraging to step into cash overflow. And the beauty of being in these summits and these, you hear specialized knowledge in different channels and niches of real estate that you can accomplish cash overflow in the different ways. And all of you individuals are unique and different and have different plans, goals, perspectives, like Sarah mentioned, the other speakers mentioned. So the cool thing is you get to really learn from life professors, right, who have the cash overflow life, the freedom, living life full time, and really kind of chart your course on what channel, what avenue you're going to go. And we'll share about how we've done that and what we teach on. And within that, these slides right here, we're going to hit our main focal points that really drive our decisions. To Sarah, back to Sarah's question on, well, what, there's land development, there's flipping, there's mobile home parks, there's syndications, there's multifamily, there's commercial, retail. So for us, and we were actually having this conversation earlier today with someone, is we're more focused on, because we refine our focus to cash overflow, right? Passive cash flow producing assets, then any opportunities that provide that then that's a filter that it checks that box, and we move on and we lean into looking at that right now. And that's taken the shape of different. We own ranches, we have Airbnbs, we have single family, we have multifamily. You know, we eventually at some point we believe we'll have other asset classes of storage units and mobile home parks and different things. But for us, it's our primary focus of continuing to grow the cash flow and cash overflow in a passive way, and also in an active way as too. In addition, we'll talk about the active and passive differences in our portfolio and what that might mean for you. But ultimately at the core, we focus on creating our own economy. And what we mean by that is, you know, a lot of the talk in the media and a lot of investors talk about interest rates or talk about this on a macro level. But when you learn to create your own economy, then you set your sails to where you can excel financially in every cycle, every season, every market. And even more than that, you can succeed maximally, right? I mean, most of the successful people I've heard say that in the recessions and depressions, there were more millionaires made and more millions made than in the boom other times, right? In cycles. And why is that? Because in crisis and times of great need, there's great value to solutions, people who come in and create and provide value and solutions. But we're going to talk about on a micro level, like just some examples in the time we have together today, how we create our own economy where we're not dependent or beholden to what the market cap rates or the market interest rates or what the global or national or macro economies are doing. When you learn to really think outside the box and be creative and create your own economy in different ways. What would you like to say about? We already talked a little about cash overflows. We can move on. Cash overflow.
Cash overflow is
Is
the jam,
what
and
we-
we want
yes.
you experiencing
Yes.
it.
And so infinite ROI, again, a common term, right? Return on investment. People measure in different ways as far as cash on cash returns, your rate of return over time for a period of time. There are different metrics. And so for us, this is what I learned early on in my real estate journey. And what years before we met, we've been married 8 glorious years and have a 2-year-old, and we're here in Sarasota, Florida, and we own properties in different states around the country. But actually from a very first property, all of the properties that we've acquired either already are generating infinite ROI or they will as soon as we execute on a cash out refinance. And so that's been one of our core strategies. Some of you all have probably heard of the BRRRR strategy: buy, renovate, rent out, refinance, repeat. And so we've actually added, I think we've doubled the R's. We call it the BRRRR, like 4 more R's, because it's not just that, it's got to be buy right, renovate right, refinance right, rent it out right to the right tenants, right, the right
Repeat
term,
right.
repeat. Yeah. So it's without the right, you can do all the BRRRR wrong and lose money, right? And so that's something that's, you know, really we focus on. But from the very first taste of real estate for me, that was just changed my life forever, was a little $38,000 bank owned repo possessed property that I bought with a traditional local bank mortgage. I put basically my life savings down as a down payment. I was living in a little 2-bedroom apartment, bought it. We actually still own this property today, but the life-changing light bulb and revelation was that I stepped into infinite ROI. And so what I did was, after I went in and put a few $1,000s in for new carpet, paint, whatever it was, put a tenant in there, I went back to the same bank. They did a cash out refinance of that same original mortgage they gave me on the property. So they refinanced their own loan with the new loan that gave me all my cash back in my pocket like 60 days later after buying the property, which was down payment money and renovation money, plus almost doubled my money tax-free, doubled in 60 days. And I was like, okay, yes, this is amazing. Let's just rinse and
Let's
repeat,
do
rinse
that
and repeat.
again.
Let's do it bigger. And so that was where the snowball started, and it just went on and on from there, right? And so, but the reason it's infinite ROI is because, like, if you sit down with your financial planner and say, okay, if I invest this $100,000, what is my rate of return? Is it 10%, 20% a year, whatever that is? It's a number. Whereas in this, using this mechanism in this model with what we say increasing the velocity of your money, where you're not just putting those dollars into one property for one period of time over you know, a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever the case may be, and you have a rate of return, and then you move it out at an exit and do that. Now, I want to pause and say what Sarah's doing and all the other speakers is amazing. We're excited to be involved in all of that with them. So it's an overall picture. We're just painting our part of the picture of the ecosystem and how you can leverage and multiply money in active ways, passive ways, and a hybrid between active and passive, which we'll talk about as well. But the infinite ROI piece was what was so exciting to me, was because I had the money right back in my hands within 60 days yet. So now I own this income producing asset with $0 out of my pocket. So now every dollar that's pumping every month to me in profit, that's an infinite ROI. That's an infinite return on investment, because I have $0 out for it to be returning, right? So any amount of dollars coming to me as a percentage of zero invested is infinite ROI. And so all of our assets have been that, and are the ones that are in process now of moving into that cash out refinance situation. So that's been a huge mechanism for us. And really specializing in sourcing off-market properties. So we've taught a lot of people how to buy properties that are not for sale. And that's one of the ways, the important factors of the equation of how to create your own economy is buy properties that are not for sale. And so it happens every day. You say, well, how would somebody sell a property that's not for sale? We don't have time to get into all the details on that channel, but we'll just a quick example, and you'll see a picture of it here in a minute. We bought a couple of ranches out west with students of ours we partner with, but the second ranch we bought, it was off market. They were asking $1.125 million for this property, and we bought it for $640,000 on. This is at the peak of the market as well, at $640,000 at a 2.66% interest, seller financing interest. So we created our own economy. It didn't matter what interest rates were doing and everything else. We created our own economy on that deal. So that's an example there. Baby, what do you think about creative structure?
Well, the thing is, we say all the time, you're really only limited by your own creativity. And so, like David mentioned, when all of a sudden interest rates are going through the roof, when gas prices are going through the roof, when all the things are going through the roof, like the first question people have is, oh my goodness, like, how do you invest in real estate? And the same thing with, just touching on off-market properties for all of you who are in a super hot market and you're like, I have an agent, or maybe you are an agent, and it's like, I go on MLS and before I can even put in an offer, it's already scooped up. Well, that's the power of buying properties that aren't even for sale. But when it comes to creative structure, like literally, it's not the sky is the limit. There is no limit. And touching on what David talked about with one of our ranches, $1.125 million down to $640,000 seller financing, 2.66% interest. But what's even wilder than that is the sellers had agreed to a 0% interest.
We were under
term
contract.
with
Yeah,
us.
0%. Yeah.
And we would have closed, but there were just some loopholes with the government that we didn't want them to be flagged and us to be flagged. So we agreed on a 2.66% interest rate. All of you in the chat, if you would be cool with getting a property seller finance, where essentially they're the bank and you're only paying a 2.66% interest rate on a property. If you want that, drop me in the chat right now. So creative structure, you're only limited by your own creativity. And so we teach our students, and we want to teach all of you today to become solution specialists. So when it comes to someone who's looking to offload a property, a portfolio of properties, multifamily, they are selling for a particular reason. And so when you put on the glasses, seeing yourself as a solution specialist, money might not even be one of the sticking points for the seller. And so really being able to structure things in a way that is a win-win scenario is all we're interested in. That's all we want to teach you to do. So
Yeah.
Creative structure is amazing.
Yeah. So if you combine those two, sourcing off-market properties and then thinking creatively on the utilization. One quick other example is we're real time. We're in the midst of a deal. We're under contract right now on a package of how there's 70 houses in Florida. This is one seller at 70 houses. We're under contract as one of the 4 general partners on this package. And, when we ran the numbers and did the due diligence and assessment, the numbers, were going to be okay. They were marginal as far as rate of return and all of that. We were going to purchase it for 14 million, put 2 million into it, and then pick up a couple of million of instant equity plus the cash flow numbers. And it was a doable deal. However, on the creative side, this is now our plan moving forward because we sourced a person who works in he's a Medicaid waiver provider. And so what he does is he works with individuals who specifically have mental health conditions where they need assistance daily. It's non-medical board and care, basically, right? And so he has one little 3-bedroom house that the government's paying him $50,000 a month for 3 clients in there, right? So his profit after payroll of employees is the caregivers and utilities and groceries is about 50% of that. So he's making $25,000 a month net profit on one little 3-bedroom house, right? Part one. Part two, I mean, the main thing is you're providing a needed service and helping people in a great way. That's the greatest reward of it. Now, by sourcing, not just thinking about sourcing properties, think about sourcing a person who can be that's where you get into the hybrid, what we would call a hybrid between, it doesn't have to be either or, you can have the best of both worlds in many cases. What we've created in deals between active investing and passive, where you can be active, passive, and a hybrid. But a hybrid would be where with collaborative leveraging, you leverage other people's time, talents, abilities, skills, knowledge, network, resources in a strategic win-win way. To where in this case, for example, our plan now moving forward is to close on these 70 houses. We will own the real estate and also partner with this gentleman to run the business, right? We'll have a staffing agency, staff, employees. There's already a 20,000 person waiting list that needs these services. And then, so just based on the numbers we ran, based on the per day per diem the government pays for these individuals, on just if we did 45 of the houses, not all 70, the profit after debt, after paying the financing, taxes, insurance, overhead, payroll, everything, net free cash flow is $1 million a month. $1 million a month profit on one deal. And with no money out of our pocket, right? Because, and back to what Sarah was talking about, syndicating and bringing in partners, where what you're creating is not just blessing you and your household, but you're helping other people multiply their money through the partnership of that. So that's another just quick example of how you can be creative on utilization of real estate, short-term rental versus annual rental, those kind of things. So, and collaborative leveraging is what we call our process. And so this is how we define it, as simply plugging into certain people and processes that already exist in order to step into financial overflow immediately. It doesn't have to be someday off in the future. We have cases of students where we've helped through the process where they've stepped into, living full time with financial overflow in a matter of months. So it's the power of that.
And the power also of collaborative leveraging is, when we have opportunity strike our path, say in real estate, say you come across a $5 million deal, the sellers are extremely motivated, there's tons of equity, you would walk into equity day one, cash flows like crazy. But if you don't have the $5 million, then it's like, oh, well, that's a great deal for someone. It kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But with the power of collaborative leveraging, you take all of the limits off of your mind, because you're not looking at just what's in your hand. You're literally looking at networks and networks and networks of people. We say riches flow through relationships. And so you are collaboratively leveraging other people's time, talents, expertise, and you're able to take down giants in the land that you never thought that you could have. And it expands your mind really in every area of your life, not just in real estate.
Totally. So powerful, baby. So a few things, I know we just have a few minutes left here, so we're going to hit a few more slides. This is an example of just the power of collaborative leveraging. So one of our newest students, he's 20 years old, up in Pennsylvania. So in the first couple months of learning with us the collaborative leveraging process and applying it, this is what is generated. So he stepped into 2 different deals, both off market, a 16 unit and 29 unit blended portfolio of multifamily and duplexes and single family.
And that was within about the first 2 months.
First couple months, yeah, of it. Now he acquired these 2 deals, 45 rental units, turnkey. They were all fully rented, good condition, didn't need any money. So stepped into, cash overflow. It was cool because he said, actually, the 29 unit, he said, because he's a 50-50, so we partnered with him 50-50 on this. And so his 50% profit on the existing income that was already flowing, once he signed the papers, became an owner, he's like, this is crazy. He said, the income that this property is pumping out, his half is more than his best month he's ever made in income at his full-time job. And so that's the power of it, right? It doesn't have to be a long-term process investing in real estate when you apply collaborative leveraging, and it was with no money, no credit, because of strategic partnering, collaborative leveraging, we negotiated seller financing and those different mechanisms in the process. And then another quick example, the ranches out west, we acquired with a student as well, that are Airbnbs. So there's 10 Airbnbs total, as well as a large home. And the projected profit on that, we're wrapping up renovations there, it should generate at least $250,000 a year in net free cash flow on just 2 deals. And these were actually the first 2 properties, investment properties, that our students there had ever owned. So super exciting, life-changing stuff. So since we're just have looks like a couple minutes left, what we will do is you can screenshot the rest of these slides here on how we describe the collaborative leveraging, the 5 parts or steps in collaborative leveraging. And so if you just want to hit those real quick, baby, and then we'll wrap up, and then any questions you have for us, Sarah, of course.
So the 5 steps of collaborative leveraging, starting off with thinking, then sourcing, assessing, making sure that you're buying right, as we mentioned with the BRRRR method, funding, that's super, super important, and then maximizing. Who doesn't want to max out in life, just as Ed Mylett says. So when it comes to thinking, daily reading is essential. You get in, you get out what you are going to put in. And as a man thinks, so is he. And so if we don't replace the negative loops that we've been taught generationally, what we see everywhere, we haven't all been taught, pretty much none of us, unless we have maybe parents or a mentor that we grew up with who taught us to think differently. And so this book list is super powerful. This is just a few of the things. You can screenshot this, The Slight Edge, The Magic of Thinking Big. And these are books that we've read multiple times, and we're continuing to go through because there's such gold in them. And then mainly surrounding yourself with people who will enlarge your vision and know how daily. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with daily. And it's not to knock, friends and family who maybe aren't thinking or doing the things that you want to do. You can absolutely still love them. You can still have them in your life, but the people that you spend the most time around should be the people who inspire you, who are further along in life, and who have the things and live the life that you're really looking to. When it comes to sourcing, this is a great list that you can screenshot as soon as I fill the screen here.
And the number one thing we've found in our journey personally and with a lot of our students is just casting the net of conversation.
Yes.
Consistently, daily. If you just did this one thing every day, ask the question of people, who do they know who own properties, who own investment properties in their network?
Just say it again.
Yeah, just ask, who do you know that owns investment properties? And they say, oh, my cousin Joe owns a lot of investment. Oh, awesome. I'd love to connect with him, see how we might be able to collaborate, do business together. You get his number, you reach out, talk to them, him or her, and say, hey, so-and-so gave me your number, fellow investors, just wanted to see if you're open to selling any, or find out a little bit about them, take a genuine interest, and then just ask the question, are you open to selling any or all of your properties? And if you're a newer investor, your initial thought is, well, I don't have the capacity to buy them. You don't need that, right? We've already talked about that. You have a limitless capacity because of who you have access to, right? Which are other investors and people who want to put money, like Sarah knows how to syndicate, all those things. So the key is asking the question, because that will bring the opportunities. So doing that on a consistent basis. Again, you can screenshot these so we can wrap up, but assessing just goes through kind of our process for assessing the numbers. And again, our journey has been mostly single family and smaller multifamily residential real estate up until this point. And then funding, again, just a list to get your mind going, because a lot of times our minds have been conditioned to think in limitations and not realizing money is really the easiest part. I'm sure, Sarah, if the value's there, if the numbers are right and the message is communicated clearly, and the value, like she mentioned, the people, the property, the profits, and money, from what we've found and experienced, is the easiest part, because money is attracted to value like a magnet, like a magnetic force. So,
And another thing, just touching on the thinking, what we were talking about earlier, whatever it is that you focus on magnifies in your life and you bring into your life. And so if you're thinking that money is scarce, money doesn't grow on trees, money is everywhere. And the more you tap into that truth, the more you start to realize that
Yeah.
there are people everywhere looking for good sound deals that they can invest their hard-earned money into.
Yeah. And the last one is just maximizing, like Katie Marie said, right, is to focus on not just acquiring assets and being mediocre or slow growth, but how do you maximize the utilization? And we already talked about some of those ways as well. On the same asset, you can multiply the profitability by just one shift from an annual rental to a short-term rental, right? Or to student housing or to board and care or wherever the case may be. And so that's something to think about as well. And then these other factors here, you can screenshot, can help you maximize there. And then lastly, the link there is one of our sites. This is our actual free community and group where there's a lot of detailed free video trainings in there for you. So definitely, if you're not already a part of that, Kingdom Wealth through realestate.com, you can go there and plug into everything that's going on there. And as long as once you go in there on the site, as long as you follow the steps to opt in to the texting thread and email if you want to be notified, then all the times that we're doing free trainings live on Zoom and the recordings and all that, you'll be in the loop and notified so you don't miss out. There already are free trainings in the group. So when you go in there, you'll see those inside the group and you can watch those and find out a bunch of cool things that is just super fun, super cool and powerful to help you in your education journey.
And I just dropped the link here in the chat.
In the Zoom chat, awesome.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you so much for having us
Yes.
and on your platform and being able to share some of those
Yeah,
things.
of course. And I want to add on to something you said about like money is attracted to value. And I'm going to totally butcher this, but there's a Chinese proverb or saying that the more problems you solve, the more wealth you will create. And so like looking at it that way, it's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, the more problems you solve, the more wealth you will create because, well, I don't need to explain it. It's pretty obvious. But when I started looking at it that way, that's, yeah, it totally like shifted the way I thought about building wealth in my own personal portfolio. So
So
hope
true.
that helps someone out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, David and Katie, thank you so much. I appreciate the mindset that you guys have, the positive abundance view of money and generating wealth and freedom and lifestyle and love wealth and relationship wealth and abundance. So thank you so much for being here and sharing that with everyone.
You're so welcome. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
See you soon.
All righty.
All right. So up next, we have Tanisha, who's over in Hawaii, which I was over in Hawaii last week. So, but she was in San Diego. So we swapped California and Hawaii. But if you guys were invited here by me, you'll recognize Tanisha. We've done a couple things together. Tanisha and I met on stage at a conference we were both speaking at, and I was just blown away by her story, and how she's changed her life, and then what she teaches people and how it changes their life. It's super cool. A lot of our investor community has now started working with the TARDIS company using what she has termed the income snowball. Even my brother-in-law is now a TARDIS client. He's working with you guys. Yeah, he's super excited. He's been really happy with it. So I'm excited for you to be here, and I know we're starting late, so I'll just like give you the stage and let you run if that's good.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here. Is this all, are we going to be able to get a replay of this? Because I would love to hear
Oh,
more
yeah.
about what David and Katie were just talking about. That
Oh
sounds-
yeah, it's recorded. We'll send the recording out to everyone, and then we'll have it downloadable for the speakers.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome.
All right. Okay. So let me share with you here some. All right. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'll jump
Sure.
right in. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about how to multiply your assets and passive income fast with the Income Snowball investing system. So it is a system that I invented. I did get a patent on my calculator, which shows you how to actually make it all work and what to do. to multiply your assets and passive income. And I got that patent in 2014. So that's pretty exciting too. There aren't a whole lot of people, individuals out there, other than the big financial firms that are able to get patents on financial calculators. But I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to be able to do that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, some of you may have heard some of this before, some of it's a little bit new, but for those of you who haven't heard me speak, I'm just going to give a little bit of quick overview before I dig into the nitty gritty. First disclaimer, we are not financial planners, advisors. We don't sell investment products. We don't sell insurance. We don't sell any kind of financial product. We don't receive any kind of compensation in any way for you purchasing any type of investments. So we're not, endorsing or, basically recommending anything specific. I'm using everything for illustration purposes so that you're educated and you understand how the system works. So really excited to share this with you. All right. So my name is Tanisha Souza. I'm the president and CEO of Tardis Wealth Strategies. We've been in business for over 20 years, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about how all of this came to be and how I got started. So that was me as a young attorney. I used to practice law in both California and Hawaii before I realized that I hated it and that I definitely needed to get out. The corporate life, everyone knows Sarah's story as well, and the corporate life can be very ugly and stressful and long hours. And I had recently been married, and I knew that we wouldn't be able to spend time together and that a family probably wouldn't be possible. So I knew that I was going to have to find a way out. So in that time, the first thing that we decided to do, and it was after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, so I really loved the book list that the couple that was just on was talking about, because it was the Rich Dad Poor Dad book that we read that kind of got us thinking in terms of passive income and realizing that once our passive income could cover all of our living expenses, that's when I would be financially free. So the first thing we had to do is pay off my student loans, which I had $100,000 in student loans, and we fixed and flipped. We actually used real estate. We bought a fixer-upper on foreclosure, flipped it, paid it off. And then we kind of continued that process until we purchased a strip mall where the cash flow was large enough to more than cover our living expenses. It actually was more than I was making as an attorney in Hawaii. And the rest was history. Once we did that, paid off the student loans first in one fell swoop with a purchase and sale of a fixer-upper. Then after that, we ended up 2 properties later purchasing that strip mall. And then I was able to quit my job. Now, I didn't quit immediately because I didn't know what else to do. But the idea of not worrying and not being stressed out and being, I was really in a negative work environment and not having to deal with that, knowing that I could quit at any time, that was invaluable. Now, after that, we started our business over 20 years ago. We have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. I received that patent. That's me holding it there quite a while ago. And this is me and my husband now. So we have 2 young girls. One just graduated from high school. So I have a high school graduate who's 17 and one who's 15, and she plays beach and indoor volleyball. So we have a full life. We feel very blessed because we are able to not only help other people achieve the same kinds of dreams and goals that we were able to achieve. It took us longer and it was a little bit harder. Actually, it was very difficult, the road that we took. It was quick though. And what we're looking for was a solution for other people that didn't have a huge amount of money kind of sitting around, hundreds of thousands of dollars saved that they could, do all of these different things with. We wanted to be able to help the average person and anyone in between who wanted to be able to achieve results like we achieved without all of the hard work that we did fixing and flipping homes. All right, so a couple of real quick things I want you to know, a couple of statistics. One is that 64% of Americans say that money is the #1 source of stress in their lives. Now that's huge. And this was like before COVID. This is before the economy that you're seeing right now. And I loved what David said about the fact that in recessions, that's the time when most millionaires are made. Most people don't know that, but you know, the rich get richer during recessions. And a lot of that has to do with investing and also with business. There's a lot of opportunities. So I call 2023 the year of opportunity. I told all my clients that at the beginning of the year, I was like, there's going to be so much opportunity. You just have to be ready to take advantage of it. So that's probably one of the big things that I always think about is that 64%. But the average American only needs about $5,000 a month or 60 grand a year in passive income to quote unquote retire. And by retire, I mean financial freedom or the choice to leave, right? I was financially free. I stayed in my job because I didn't know what else to do. It wasn't until the opportunity to start a business came. And guess what? I was able to do it with no risk because I didn't even have to get paid for the first 9 months. And I didn't get paid because I didn't really know what I was doing. And I said I would do it for free. I was able to do that for free, work for free in my business for the first 9 months because I had enough passive income to cover all my living expenses and then some. So the average American needs $5,000 a month or 60 grand a year. That's what they use. That's what they spend on their mortgage payment or their rent, their utilities, their groceries, you know, their car, all of that, everything. But some people spend more. If you live in Hawaii, you live in California, most likely the cost of living is a lot higher. So you're going to need a lot more. Some people spend less, but that's about average. Now, if you're one of those people that needs $5,000 a month to live, that means you need 1.2 million earning 5% per year to generate $5,000 a month or $60,000 per year. That's the traditional way, right? That's if you're trying to sock money away into a mutual fund in your 401k or your IRA, you know, that's going to sit there for, you know, the next 30, 40, 50 years. The old traditional system is all about accumulating this large amount of money, millions of dollars, so that you can then live on the interest and hopefully not run out. I'm talking about an entirely different system. So, and it's going to take a little bit of a mind shift, but I know that everyone that's on this Confident Investor Series, you know, summit here, I know that you guys think outside the box. So this is going to be very exciting for a lot of you. Okay, so here's the question. Which sounds easier? Building up $1.2 million in cash somewhere in an account, or creating $5,000 per month in passive income? Which sounds easier, right? I mean, hopefully so far, just from what you've heard from other speakers, what do you say? I want to hear from you guys. Put it in the chat. What's easier? Building up 1.2 million or creating $5,000 a month in passive income? Okay, all right.
It's
Yeah.
unanimous.
Right. $5,000 per month, correct. So it's one of those things where, you know, the most of society is trying to do something that is not only very difficult, but it takes many, many years. And by the time you reach that $1.2 million, 30, 40, 50 years from now is not going to be worth $1.2 million. If you needed 1.2 million to retire today, 30, 40 years from now, you're gonna need a whole lot more than 1.2. Okay. All right. So keep that in mind as well. All right. So let me just kind of really quickly give you an explanation of the income snowball, and then I'll walk you through just kind of, you know, so that you understand how it works and how you could implement this. Okay. So it took us about a little over 6 years of research and development before I was able to not only file the patent, but get it. And then what it does on that calculator, forecasts your financial freedom date. It can also forecast your debt freedom date too, if that's something you're interested in, finding out how long it would take you to pay off whatever personal debts or mortgages or whatnot that you have. If that's something you're interested in, it can help you do that too. And you can do both simultaneously, pay off debt and increase your income. Most people come to us for passive income. That's the majority of people, but some people also want to pay off student loans and also, you know, something else. We have some doctors and lawyers and people with a lot of student loans that like to do that. The average client is able to reach financial freedom in 5 to 10 years on average. Now think about that, right? Most people take 30, 40, 50 years in the traditional system. This is 5 to 10 to be able to achieve it. It's not a get rich quick scheme, anything like that. It's something that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of cash flow. And I'll explain to you how that works. It's again, patent in 2014. And I'm going to review an example of the income snowball investment system at work. Remember, it's a system. It's a system of investing, and it requires certain specific, specific pieces, right? One being cash flow. So we're going to assume that in this example, for this illustration, and remember, if you have this exact same cash flow, it's not going to work exactly this way for you. There's a lot of variables in here, and you'll see what they are in just a minute. But assume that your monthly cash flow is $2,500, and let's get on the same page as far as what is cash flow, right? Let's make sure that we're talking the same language. Cash flow is your income, what you take home from your job or your business. That's your take-home pay from all sources, minus your expenses, your debts, your bills, your car note, your mortgage or rent or whatever, your groceries, dining out, all of those vacations, that's included, right? So the monthly expense with with all of your expenses broken down monthly equals your cash flow. That's what you have left over. Now, if at the end of the month you've got nothing, that is a break-even cash flow. Not the best, but there's some things you can do to get that up. If you have you basically spend more than you make and you're dipping into savings every month, we got to make some adjustments there as well. But if you do have some extra cash flow, right? That's what we call cash flow. When you have something left over that you're probably putting into savings, you might be putting in your 401k or your IRA, or you just might be spending it. But whatever that extra cash flow is, I'm going to show you how to utilize that in the income snowball system to reach whatever your goal is, right? Maybe it's not financial freedom. For me, I wanted to still do something. I just didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to do that job anymore. And I felt forced. I felt like I was handcuffed to the job that I hated because I had $100,000 in student loan debt, right? So doing two things for me, right, which was paying off the student loans and also creating that passive income was what worked for me. For some people, it's just creating enough passive income to cover their mortgage or their student loans. They're okay. They're like, hey, the interest rate's low. I'm okay with keeping it. I would just like my investments to cover that as well as all of my expenses. That's okay too. Now that we're on the same page as far as what cash flow is, let's suppose you start with that $2,500 extra cash flow. You've got $2,500 left over each month. I'm using this for very simple numbers for the ease of math. Okay. Right. And then you obtain a $10,000 line of credit, also known as leverage, right? We talked about leverage, the prior speakers were talking about collaborative leverage. Well, this type of leverage is very similar to a credit card. It's not a credit card, but it works the same. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar. A HELOC is one of them, a BLOC, an IBLOC. There's so many different types. The type is important and the amount you use is important, right? Because it has to fit into your specific cash flow situation. So you shouldn't borrow too much. You'd never want to, people sometimes see my income snowball video and they say, hey, you know what? I've got a $500,000 line of credit on my home. I think I'll just take that and throw it into an investment. That's very risky. And that's not the income snowball. As you'll see, that will blow this entire thing up. So you don't want to ever borrow too much. And I'm going to show you why. You'll see why that's not only not a good idea, but it just won't make this whole system work. So in this example, we're going to obtain a line of credit for $10,000. Line of credit is like a credit card. You use it, you can pay it off. You can reuse it and pay it off, and on and on. So that's what we're talking about here. And using that leverage to buy short-term amortized income assets. Okay, and I call that fast burning fuel. Now, what is a short-term amortized income asset? It is an asset that pays you principal and interest payments over a short period of time. So it's 2 years, maybe 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, right? That's about the longest for the short term. So short-term amortized income investments pay you more because the time is condensed. Why don't people, when they're buying rental properties, why don't they get 15-year mortgages? Well, some do, but very few. Why don't people get 15-year mortgages when they're buying rentals? Because the payments would be way too high. With the shorter the term, the bigger the payments, and therefore they wouldn't cash flow, right? The income that they're getting from the rental wouldn't cover the mortgage payment and all the other expenses like the property manager fees and everything else. So most people, if they're using leverage, and leverage is great with real estate, you're going to want to use a 30-year mortgage. You're going to stretch that thing as far as you can so the payments are low enough that you have a really nice cash flow. So in this case, we're doing the opposite, right? We're borrowing, and then what we're going to do is we're going to buy these assets that pay us huge amounts of money in very short periods of time. And we call that fast burning fuel. And I call it fast burning fuel for a reason. I'm going to give you this illustration of exactly how this works. Okay. So here's the analogy I'd like to use. And a lot of people really get it when I use this analogy. This is a race car. So imagine you have a race car, and imagine you have a regular car, like a Honda Accord, that type of thing. So you've got a race car and a Honda Accord, right? If you put both of these cars and you're basically going to race them, put them on a racing track at the starting line, and you're going to put the Honda Accord against the race car, which car do you think will cross the finish line first? Okay, tell me which one you think. Let's look in the chat. What do you think? The Honda or the race car? And this is not a trick question, by the way. Okay. All right. Race car. Very good. Race car. Okay. So if you have a race car and a Honda, we'll just double check that, right? We'll just check that to make sure. Let's see. Okay. Looks like the race car finished first. Okay. And here's why. There's a few reasons why, but I'm going to give you the quick answer. Now, if you know anything about race cars, they use a specific type of fuel. It's racing fuel, right? And racing fuel is different from regular fuel. For anybody that knows, I just spoke at an event this past weekend in San Diego, and I asked this question: does anybody know anything about race cars and racing fuel? And actually, several people in the audience did. And they said, racing fuel burns faster. The high octane is very fast. It burns faster than regular fuel. But what it is it gives the engine, which is built for that fuel, it gives it the speed it needs to reach the goal faster, right? It's much faster than a regular, sedan, a regular fuel car. So what you want to do is make sure that when you're using a race car, you're using racing fuel. And when you're driving a regular car, you're using regular fuel. Right? That's what you want to make sure that you're doing in those cases. And some examples of what we call fast burning fuel are short-term mortgage notes, peer-to-peer lending like Prosper.com, short-term income funds. As for regular fuel, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, rental properties, long-term notes. Now, when we invest for income. So, stocks, bonds, most mutual funds, those things most of the time won't even work for the income snowball because it doesn't produce income, right? That's the accumulation model used in the old system. So we're talking about is a new vehicle, right? The income snowball with different fuel. So it's not just borrowing to invest, it's borrowing to invest in specific types of assets and then layering on some of the slow burning fuel, right? We call this regular fuel slow burning, layering it on. So imagine having a bunch of race cars that are in like a V line, similar to birds, how they fly. When they fly, the bird at the front and all the birds fly in formation. They do that for drafting, and it helps them all fly faster. So imagine having a bunch of race cars, and then you have the Honda behind it or inside of that V that's just flying down the road. It can actually make the slow burning fuel go faster. You're able to buy more real estate quicker, more of these other investments faster, with the income snowball once you have the fast burning fuel in place. So now what happens if you put racing fuel in a Honda? Does anybody know what would happen if you took your Honda Accord and you put racing fuel inside of that? Anybody on the call know? Okay. Okay, good. All right, we're getting some. You would basically blow the engine, right? You would destroy the car. It's not built for that, right? The Honda is not built for that. So why would you take these fast burning fuel investments and invest it the traditional way? There's a lot of people doing that, right? Most of the people who invest with Prosper.com, they're actually investing in that with their 401k or their IRA, which is great. I mean, their IRA, or they're just investing it for accumulation, building up this large amount of money, and they're getting passive income, but just putting it back into this pile so that one day they have those millions that they need to be able to live on. Nothing wrong with that. It's just slow. So you don't want to put the fast burning fuel into the old system. You want to put the fast burning fuel in the new system, which is the income snowball, the faster way to achieve your results, the faster way to accelerate or multiply your assets and your passive income. All right, so now back to the example. Remember, we started with $2,500 in surplus cash flow, right? At the end of the month, after all your bills are paid, you got an extra $2,500. You've got a $10,000 revolving line of credit. You take that revolving line, you purchase an investment, right? And that produces $320 a month for 3 years. Okay, 3 years in this case. Now, remember, every investment has a different type of, a different term. So that's another factor that will make a difference. The amount of leverage, the interest rate of the investment, the length of time, all of that. But my calculator takes all those things into effect, and you can actually plug anything in and see if it will work with the income snowball, including rental properties. I'm not going to go into that. That's a whole nother webinar. I could spend an hour on that, but you could plug those in to see how they work and how quickly you can purchase them using the income snowball. So fast burning fuel assets that produce $320 a month. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do something with that $320, right? So we've invested 10 grand using other people's money. And now we're getting $320 a month for 3 years, 36 months. What you do is take that $320 you're getting each month and your $2,500 surplus cash flow, and you're going to use that to pay down that line of credit. So when you add that up, that's about $2,820 that's used to pay down a $10,000 line of credit in this case. The line of credit would be paid off in about 3.5 months. That's all it would take. So now what happens after 3.5 months? You've got a line of credit free and clear. And for the next 32 months, you're going to keep getting $320. So what would make the most sense, right? The calculator will show you, go ahead and do another investment, in this case, $10,000. In the future, the calculator will say, X number of months from now, you're going to increase that line, not from $10,000 to maybe 15 or 20,000 or some other amount, 17,500 or whatever the amount is. But it's formulating the fastest path to your goals by finding out what is the sweet spot, what is the amount you need that will accelerate this and make this go. If the line of credit you use is too big and you don't have the cash flow to support it, what will happen is it will take you too long, and that you won't have the stacking effect of the income. So let me show you the stacking effect. Once that line of credit's paid off, you've paid it off in 3.5 months, you're going to use it to buy the next fast burning fuel asset, right? FBF is fast burning fuel. So you're going to buy another one, right? We're assuming the same interest rate, right? And because that's how we built it. We start with a specific line of credit, a specific interest rate on everything. Everything is factored in. So on that investment, and the length of time is important as well. So in three years is the time frame. So now we have two $320 payments coming to us each month, in addition to our $2,500 to pay off the $10,000 line of credit. Obviously, now you've got $640 and your $2,500, so $3,140 to pay off the $10,000 line of credit. Obviously, it will be faster to pay it off this time because you have twice as much income coming in from the investment. The first one now, you'll be getting those payments for another 30 months. The second one, you'll be getting it for another 33 months. So for a very long time, you'll be getting these payments. With twice as much fast burning fuel income, you pay off the line of credit in 3 months or 3.1 months, and you rinse and repeat. You're going to stack that fast burning fuel, the income, the personal cash flow, that it pays off the leverage faster, and then you increase the leverage. Guess what? As that income increases, the amount you put in does not change. The $2,500 stays the same. That stays the same, but the income you receive keeps getting higher. In addition to that, when you increase the line of credit, and that has to happen periodically, or the income snowball won't work properly until you reach that financial freedom goal. It will tell you, in how many months, how many years, you will increase it and by how much, so that the next purchase of the investment is greater, so that when that first investment reaches month 36 and you lose that first $320 payment, you're not just getting another one to replace it. You're actually getting a $550 payment from the new investment, because the new investment is a lot larger. Now, taking this, say you started this in January, and so now you have $320 a month coming in January and February and March and April. Then in May, you do that second investment because you paid it off so quickly. And now you have $640 in May, in June, in July. And then you do your third investment. So in August, you have 3 times as much money, $960, August, September, October. And then in November, you have $1,280. But remember, all of these investments are going on 4 years. You're going to keep getting these 4 years. You're going to keep getting them. So what that means is that you're going to keep stacking, and the amount of the amount that you get is going to increase as well, because the amount that you are investing will increase as well. So imagine if you keep doing this, right? You could theoretically be paying this off every month, right? With your $2,500 plus another, $8,000 a month, or $7,000 a month coming in. You can see how quickly in less than a year you have $1,200 a month coming in. Think about how long that would take you in a traditional manner to create $1,200 a month. Think about how many millions of dollars you'd have to have in an account generating interest of that, of that amount, or how many rentals you would have to purchase with leverage to be able to get that much. I mean, there's just so many things. Now, all of those things can help you build your income snowball, and you can have a very comprehensive income snowball for you. I'm going to show you how to add some additional investments to this, and how crazy, and this gets really, really cool when you start adding these other ones. Now, in the example that I just gave you, the person would reach financial freedom in 8 years. So that means the income snowball is self-sustaining. That means that you don't have to contribute $2,500 anymore. No more of your own money has to go into the income snowball. That stops. You're withdrawing $5,000 a month to live on while your income snowball keeps growing. Okay. And if you needed more, you can build that into your snowball calculator as well. If you think $5,000 isn't going to be enough in 8 years, you can do something, you can do more. And you still have the value of those assets. So if you ever want to access or tap into the asset itself and basically liquidate those assets and take the cash and do something else, you can do that. The assets keep growing, right? And I'll show you that. Now I'm gonna really quickly share with you, and I did this in a webinar that Sarah and I did together. I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe I'm not sure exactly when it was. Everything's a blur because like things are going so fast. I'm like, when was that? So she talks about an investment, and so I'm going to show you the illustration that I used by using this particular investment. It is a tax advantage oil and gas investment where you get a reduced tax burden. So you can write off or deduct 100%, 75% in the first year of the investment. And you get monthly passive income. And then the first targeted distribution, say, was March, but let's say we're going to say it starts a few months after when you first do your first investment. And then they're expecting a 3.4 multiple in exit. So if you invested, $200,000, you end up with $680,000. At least that's the plan, right? Over time. Now, what I did, and this is a three-year investment. So what I did was I plugged this investment in, right? You already have your fast burning fuel. Now we're going to layer in this investment to see how it would work. And this is what's so valuable, not only about the calculator, but also with the coaching, because whenever you find something out there, if there's an investment you find that you're like, hey, this is awesome and it looks great, all you have to do is plug it into the calculator and see if it will work. And your coach can help you with that as well. But a 3.4 multiple in exit. So what I did was I took this investment to show you what the tax benefit and how that can accelerate the results of the income snowball. And then I added in the passive income, and you always want to go with the lower number, right? Target is 14 to 21%. We could use this number, but we always want to be conservative and use the lowest number possible. If you're trying to invest in something and they're projecting, 8% to 14%, choose 8, put it in, see how that works. You can always try 14 and see what that would do, but it's always better to put a lower number in. And if it exceeds what you put in, great, that's even better, right? It's always better if you put in a lower number, and if it does better than that, great. And then as far as the value on the exit, I didn't even include the multiple on exit. So this is icing on the cake if this does happen, right, with this particular investment. So let me show you what happens. So the first thing I wanted to show was what happens with your taxes. So again, you got to be strategic with your investing. A lot of people think investing is hard. Well, we've made it very simple, because now you're going to have access to all of this knowledge through not only a calculator, but through our portal, our videos, all of that, and the coaching that you get on a monthly basis. But suppose your adjusted gross income is $140,000, right? And so that puts you at a very high tax bracket, right? You're looking at $33,600 in federal taxes. And let's say that you live in a state that doesn't have any state taxes. So that's all the taxes you'd pay. You would end up with about $107,000 to spend, right? That's paying all your bills, your mortgage or your rent or whatever, all your living expenses. That's $60,000. We're going back to that original number I told you about, that the average household only needs about 60 grand a year to live on. So in this case, we're using the 60,000 in living expenses example. So if out of the 107, you're only spending 60, you would have $47,000 left. And let's say in this case, they want to use all of that in their income snowball. What you'll find, a lot of people are like, oh, I'll start with, 2,500, but they have 5,000. Once they get going and they see this money coming in and how fast it grows, they end up putting more in. So this is an example of someone putting in $3,900 into their income snowball. Do you have to put all your cash flow in? No, you don't. Of course not. But you'd want to in most cases, because it will help you reach your goals so much faster, whatever those goals may be. So $3,900 a month is the contribution that this client is putting into their snowball until they reach financial freedom. Once they reach financial freedom, they no longer have to put any money in. It self-sustains. It's actually, and you can draw out what you need to live, that $5,000 a month in this example. Now let's look at the tax aspect of it, right? A lot of people don't consider this. Now, suppose your income is $140,000 and you have $100,000 in savings, and you put it in this particular oil and gas investment, and you got a $75,000 tax deduction year one, right? And then, you have really good tax planner, so you'll be getting similar deductions each year, not through this investment necessarily, but similar deductions. So we're going to say that you have an adjusted gross income now of $65,000. If you have $140,000 gross income and or take home, and then you have $75,000 deduction, reduces your taxable income down to $65,000, puts you in a totally different tax bracket. So now your federal tax bill is about $14,300. Again, this is an example. No state taxes taken into account, and some other factors as well. So this is a little bit of an oversimplification, but so you can understand the power of tax planning as well. And again, we don't do this, and hopefully you have your own tax person, but we can refer you out to people if that's something you need. $125,700 now for spending. Now, did this person make any less than the person who didn't have a $75,000 deduction? No. They made the same amount of money. The difference is this person looks like they only made $65,000. So that means they have $125,000 to spend. So when you take out the $60,000 living expenses, they have a $65,000 cash flow, which is $54.75 per month for the income snowball. Now I'm going to go back because I want you to see this. $3,900 cash flow versus $54.75 per month. That makes a huge difference in an income snowball. Okay, we're not even talking about passive income yet. We're just talking about tax strategy. Okay, just tax strategy alone. Now I'm going to show you, this is the calculator. I'm going to walk you through this illustration. This is somebody that's taking home the $107,000 because they don't have any tax write-offs. So they're in the highest tax bracket and the taxes have already been taken out of their paycheck. So they're getting $89.16 per month, and their expenses are $5,000 a month, right? That $60,000 a year that the average person, or the average household, I should say, needs, right? So we have the living expenses of $5,000, and they're starting this January 1st of 2023. So they're starting their snowball in January. They're going to reach financial freedom 8 years later, which is April. It's 8 years and a couple months, right? A few months, 2031. So they start in 2023. In 2031, 8 years later, they can withdraw 5122, and their total income is going to be 21,310. Sounds huge. It is, right? And the rest of that cash flow keeps getting reinvested into their snowball, but they're starting with 3,900 in cash flow, as you can see. And then that investment commitment doesn't really change. It kind of fluctuates slightly, but it doesn't really change until they reach financial freedom, and that commitment goes to zero. And the cash flow keeps increasing, right? That net that they have left, that keep reinvesting, which is why the snowball grows so big. The asset keeps growing, even though the asset values are small on some of these, right? And they actually, some of them disappear. The asset value keeps growing because you've been stacking these investments for so many years, right? So we're talking an 8-year financial freedom date in that first example I gave you, with someone whose taxable income is 107, it goes down to 107. Now the person who has more, that's 10,475. That's that extra money they have because they took advantage of the tax savings, right? Same expenses, same start date. The difference is the take-home income is greater. It's 10,475 instead of 8,900. So now the financial freedom date went to 6 years. 6 years just by using the tax strategy. There's no cash flow from this investment at all. I just want you to get the power of this. Now, remember, when they reach financial freedom, all the income that they're generating is going to stop. All the money they're putting into their snowball stops. The cash flow is greater now, 23,000, right? The asset's greater now. And that's because they had more money to put in their snowball from the beginning. Now when we add in an interest-only investment, okay, we're adding in the oil and gas investment, and I'm going to show you what that does, or how that adds to this. So you can see the power of having a tool like this at your disposal, because it's so powerful. It really gives you an advantage over other investors that just don't know whether an investment is good. I mean, your coaches also help with this, right? They're going to help you understand what to do if your investments don't perform as expected. They're going to help you figure out how to choose investments, what's best for you, what your risk tolerance is, all of that. Now, we don't do any investing for you, you do it yourself, but we do it with you, right? The coaches are actually walking you through on a monthly basis, and weekly group coaching sessions as well. So we know it was 2029. Guess what happens when we add that 14% investment? It goes to 2027. Now the financial freedom date is simply 4 years away. It went from 8 years to 4. It got cut in half, utilizing those two really cool things: tax and income on an interest-only investment layered into the fast-burning fuel. But the key to start this is always to have that fast-burning fuel going initially. Now we have companies on the main, we're in Hawaii. And I always say the mainland. So people are like, when I say that, and they don't know that we're in Hawaii. And although Sarah just told you that, that have created products specifically for the income snowball that give you principal and interest back on a monthly basis. So that all of that is taken care of for you, so you don't have to do that. So now what? You're probably thinking, okay, so what now? I get the gist of it. I know there's a lot more to this. Yes, there's a lot more to this. I'm giving you the surface, not a lot of time, but you do have a choice, right? You can try to kind of, stumble through, try to figure things out and try to make things work, or you can really, have a strategy session, right? It's always free. A coach is going to review your goals, your current, what you're doing now, what you're trying to achieve, plug that into the calculator, and they're going to come up with a plan for you, right? This is free. It doesn't cost you anything to see whether or not this works for you in the first place. So you'll get a personalized plan, complete with how to reach your goals and a financial freedom date. For you, it might be 12 years, but hey, that might be better than the 40 that it would have been if you had kept on the traditional system. Or, it might be 5 years or 4 years. Some people do it in 2, believe it or not. So you can do it as quickly as need be. And the idea is passive income. You do the investment and you just collect a check every month, right? There's really not a whole lot you have to do. The calculator does all the heavy lifting, and so does the coach really walk you through so that you know exactly what to do, and it becomes very simple. You get one-on-one coaching, monthly coaching, as well as we have weekly group coaching as well. So if you ever have any questions about how to use a calculator or other things, you can always jump on the group coaching calls and they'll assist you with that. So the personal plan will tell you the investment size and amount. It's different for every person. If you have an existing line of credit, we'll put the interest rate in there. We'll give you some suggestions, recommendations. If you don't have them, we'll help you get one, right? So based on your individual cash flow and situation, that's going to change. Changing the investment size, you will see, will drastically change your financial freedom date. So that line of credit, the amount you borrow will drastically change your financial freedom date. So that's the reason why we share with you exactly how to do all of that. So you'll get your debt freedom date if that's something important to you, but you'll all get your financial freedom date. That's the date your living expenses are covered by, all of your living expenses are covered by passive income, or if maybe one of you, a spouse or something, wants to leave work and the other person loves what they do, maybe one person will replace their income or whatever. So there's lots of options, use it to pay for your wedding, use it to buy a home. We had a young couple in their 30s who were like, look, I'm not trying to quit working. And what his goal was to buy $1 million home and to use the passive income to cover the mortgage payment on that, whatever it is you're trying to do. That's why it's so important to meet with a coach and figure out, what am I trying to do? What's my goal? What is my goal here? And then we will help you figure out exactly how to do that. Okay, so they're going to help you increase your cash flow, know when to increase your leverage and investment amounts, evaluate and choose investments that work best in your situation, stay accountable, give you clear action steps. There was a client we had that was interested in this, that investment that I was just sharing with you. And when we looked at it, it didn't make sense for them because they really didn't have any W-2 income. All their income was from rentals. And so we went a different direction. That investment doesn't make sense for them. So again, we're going to help you evaluate and choose. We don't recommend anything specific. If you have investment that your uncle is doing that you're interested in, bring it. Let us plug it in. Let us show you. Just make sure you've got your fast burning fuel in place. Stay accountable, give you clear action steps, invest and pay off debt at the same time. You can do all of that. Okay, so a complimentary strategy session with a wealth coach that includes your own personalized plan, a demo of the calculator, no obligation. Just take a screenshot of the QR code here and you can sign up for a complimentary strategy session. Now, the last time we did this, it was crazy. We had so many strategy session requests that we went out, we were booked out for a few months. So go ahead and, and book it. What I'll do for the first 5, right? I'm only gonna do for 5 this time. It's a lot of work for me. But what I'll do is I will do a short video for you, sharing with you the plan that the coach is going to show you, and I'll explain to you why we came up with it and what we think it will do for you. So that you understand the rationale behind the particular plan. The system is, you'll learn it. It actually takes 6 months or maybe a little bit longer to really get it. Usually a little bit longer than 6 months. The first year is spent really understanding not only the system, but the investments so that you can find your own as well and be able to start layering those on. But we can source out for you all different types. If you're very risk averse, you want 4%, you want something a lot higher, we can show you where to find all of that. So very, very good stuff. So go ahead and click on the, take a picture of the complimentary strategy session. I highly recommend you schedule it. It'll show you, you'll be able to see what your plan is and you'll be able to say, hey, you know what, I love it. Let's work together, or no, I don't, 5 years is too long for me. I can do it in 1. Okay, great. More power to you. So all of that, highly recommend complimentary strategy session. First 5 people who request a strategy session, I will do a video for. All right. So that is it. I tried to go through it quickly. I wanted to make sure that I know we were going over in previous sessions, so I didn't want to take up too much time. I hope that was okay. Let's
That
see.
was perfect. I love it. And so again, you guys, actually, I just booked one as well. I'd like to ask, my question is, why wouldn't you do more? Because like I have access to, larger lines of credit. And so it's very like, literally, we did a plan yesterday and it was like, well, we'll take out, a much larger number than what you put on the screen and just put it into one of our own funds that we're doing. Why not just do like one big chunk? Is there a reason you wouldn't? You said
There
so.
is a
I get
reason.
it.
Yeah, no, there's a reason. I'll explain. So, for you, I mean, Sarah, I can tell you right now, I mean, I don't know exactly what your cash flow is, but you would be doing much more than $10,000.
Yes.
Everyone's amount is different, but the reason why I use that example is because we have had people that have seen my video and they're like, well, I've got, $500,000 or whatever on my HELOC. I'm going to take that and I'm going to throw that into this fast burning fuel.
Mhm.
Problem with that is usually the cash flow that they have doesn't support it. So the only thing that's really paying it off is the investment itself.
Oh,
that-
I see.
Yeah, so that means it would take almost the entire 3 years, if it's a 3-year investment, for example, to pay that off, to pay off the leverage. Maybe it would take them 30 months. Let's say it takes them 30 months. So they're paying it off a few months quicker. Then the stacking doesn't really happen because now you've got 6 months of overlap. So that first investment, the payments you've been getting for 30 months, now you've got the second payment and they only stay together. You only get two payments for 6 months, and then the first one falls off and you're done. Right. So you're not getting that, you're not building any kind of momentum. So there is a timing. There are a number of investments you need to make during those years, and there needs to be some of your own cash flow in it. It can't work with the investment by itself. So there's a science to this. So we want to make sure we get that right. It either won't work at all, or it will take you a lot longer. Instead of taking, 5 or 6 years to reach financial freedom, it'll take you 10 or 12, and it'll double the time. You don't want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thanks for explaining that. Because
Yeah.
that was the part that wasn't clicking.
No,
I
I'm
get
glad
it.
you asked. I'm glad you asked because I'm sure other people were thinking the same thing. So those are always really good questions.
Yeah. I love it.
Right.
Well, Tanisha, I appreciate this. This is so cool. And I love that you have a calculator. So it's not like, it's not just like a strategy. It's very tactical. It's very exact. And you have access to a lot of people who have purpose-built products, purpose-built investments that support different goals. And so like originally when Tanisha and I talked, my apartment syndications do not support an income snowball because the cash flow is not very high. If you get like 5% cash flow on an apartment syndication, that doesn't do the trick. But there are so many different investments out there that you guys have access to that you share with your folks. And so if you're in the audience and you're thinking, I don't know what kind of investment would work. Well, don't worry, because Tanisha has events. I spoke at one of her events. I did present the fund that did work for the snowball. I didn't present my real estate deals because they don't work for the snowball, but there are other people there who are in the community, in her vendor space, that have products that do support the income snowball, and they're doing it for their other clients. So that's kind of like a little, like a safety check for you. Like it's working for other people. So they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot and have something not work for everyone.
Correct.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think it's really cool. You're helping a ton of people, and we blew you guys up last time with all the strategy sessions. So I hope we're doing it again because it's really powerful, and everyone, even if you just check in, I think it's a fun way to get started. So thank you, Tanisha. Thank you for all the knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So audience, we went over, we were supposed to go till noon PST, it's 12:20, but we'll open it up for Q&A. We have most of the speakers still here. So we don't have Frank anymore. He was sick, but he still came on for his session. But the rest of us are here. So all the other speakers, if you want to come back on your screen, and we're going to bring the Q&A right up in front of our faces and the chat right up in front of our faces. So audience, if you have questions, ask them now. The biggest question I saw is there a replay? Yes, it's going to go out tomorrow morning. So look in your email box tomorrow morning, because there was a lot of information we shared, right? A lot of information from each speaker. So you can go back, you can re-listen to it. If something didn't quite click, listen again. You can also share this with anyone you want to share it with. So it's not private information. We're out there on the internet saying what we just said to you guys. So feel free to share it with, anyone you make investment decisions with, friends and family. The more people we can help, the happier we are. That's why we do this. That's why we spend time on here. So let's see. I'm going to say David. There you are. And Don, if you want to come back on. And let's go ahead and open it up.
Sarah, I'm still blocked.
Oh. There you go. All right,
Sarah?
so take it away, audience. Shoot us all your questions. It can be anything. It can be personal. It can be about what we presented. It can be in general about something that's going on in the economy in the world. All right, we got one. For Sarah and Tanisha, can we use high cash value whole life insurance to invest in syndications and use the snowball method? I'll answer first and say a lot of people borrow from their whole life insurance to invest in syndications because it's more flexible on the payback. So the thing with syndications and real estate, if something happens like the apartment building burns down and we have to pause distributions, if you have money, if you've borrowed from a bank, the bank still wants you to pay them, whether or not your investment is making you money. But on whole life insurance, it's much more flexible. So I like that because it's like, okay, so I missed paying off, my line of credit for a year. It doesn't matter. It's not like the bank's going to come after you or your property that you leveraged. Now, as far as the snowball method, I would say you can use your whole life insurance in the snowball method, but I wouldn't put a syndication in because I don't think the cash flow is high enough for a snowball. But what do you think, Tanisha?
Actually, so you can always use life insurance as your line of credit. So you definitely want to do that. We have a lot of clients doing that. And some of them have converted their HELOC. So for if you have cash value in your life insurance policy, you definitely want to try to use that. Now, as far as syndications, that is one of you can use it, but not as fast burning fuel. So you would use that as slow burning fuel, layering it on similar to a rental property or, that type of thing. And again, like the illustration I gave you of a bunch of race cars, right? All of your investments in the fast burning fuel that are basically leading the way of the slow burning fuel, either the rental income or the REIT or the syndication. It actually helps it go faster, and you can buy more of those quicker utilizing the income snowball than you can on your own. So you've got the power of all this other income that you have that you didn't have before buying these investments for you. So we have people that, for instance, want to purchase, they want to buy 10 rental properties, and normally it would take them 30 months or almost 3 years just to save up for the first down payment. They can buy their first one in a year and a half or 2 years with the income snowball, and they just buy them every few months, just literally like one after the other. And what they're doing is they're splitting. They're doing what's called a split, where part of that money from their line of credit or their life insurance policy goes toward the fast burning fuel, and the other part goes to the slow burning fuel. So you want to keep that fast burning fuel going. You don't want to stop that until after you reach financial freedom or you reach your end game. But in the meantime, you're going to want to do a split, and the calculator will do all that for you. It'll show you how much to invest, when to do it, all of that. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you for that. And then a follow-up question on the snowball, both from Kevin and Kathy. They're also asking for input from Dawn on this, is can you do the snowball inside of a self-directed Roth or inside of a traditional IRA?
Yes, you can. It's so cool. In fact, I'm going to be doing a webinar on that, I think in August. We call it the income snowball inside your IRA. So you basically are able to power it. So the purpose behind using leverage, because you could use cash, right, to do this, but you're always going to make more if you can use leverage because it gives you more buying power, right? Access to money that you wouldn't ordinarily have. And then you can use your cash for the slow burning fuel and start layering it on. So there's a science and there's a system to this that makes everything go a lot faster. You don't want to like try to guess on this, just, follow the plan. Right? If you're good at following plans, you can do this. But yeah, so I would definitely suggest either getting on that webinar or consulting with us. Talk to a wealth coach and say this is something you're interested in doing, and they can share with you how. Yeah.
So how does it work? Because if you're using a 0% credit card for your line of credit, how would that work if you're trying to use your retirement account?
Yeah, you're not going to use a credit card or a regular credit line. What you're using instead is you're borrowing. So you would actually have, in most cases, you would have a rental property that you would be borrowing from. So you'd be taking out some of the equity. You can actually, if for those of you who don't know, if you have a self-directed retirement account, an IRA, you can buy rental properties with leverage. So it's the one way that you can get a non-recourse loan inside of your IRA. So you wouldn't actually be doing this inside your IRA. You'd be using a IRA checkbook LLC to do all of this, but in any event, you would be using the equity in the rental property to purchase the fast burning fuel investments.
Cool, thank you. Dawn, I saw a question about the summit. Someone saying, hey, it's 3 days, tons of information. I want all the information, but I have a W-2 job and I'm busy during those times. How do I get all the information? Good point.
You know what? And they are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday classes. I cannot bring the former senior trial attorney from the IRS on a weekend. I can't bring the firepower that we're bringing. I can't. And so we have hundreds of hours on our YouTube channel. But for the summit, it's 3 days. And now, could you split that up over 2 events? Yes, you could. But we do record it for compliance purposes, but we've had too many problems with people cutting it up and reposting it. So we don't make that recording available. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of other information out there. But for the summit, it's 3 intense days, but it is what it is. And we can't do it on weekends. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Thanks for that.
Sure.
Cliff, I see you're saying, hey, you mentioned a little bit about due diligence, but I need some more help on that. So I used to do my 3-day events live, and sometimes I still do, but it's the same content. It's just me over and over. So I took my most favorite recording and I send it out. So Cliff, that's going to come out next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You'll get an email because now you're on my email list. And I think it's either going to be Thursday or Friday. The video that you receive in your inbox will be an hour of due diligence, how to do due diligence on teams, market, and investments. Not just not just how to understand the investment, but how to do your due diligence, like the real data on the teams in the market. So it will be sent out. You'll either see it Thursday or Friday. I forget, but you'll just watch your email and you'll see the one. I hope that helps. All right, from Jennifer, I think this is for Dawn. As an owner of a business, how can I get medical benefits? We have Medicaid insurance and pay no premiums, or do I have to have insurance to get to the benefits for chiropractic, dentistry, eye care? Maybe because you were talking about medical expenses.
Let me touch on that real quick. Any business owner, self-employed, can have medical, meaning the medical premiums can be paid for out of the business. Now, there's some rules about discrimination. If you have full-time employees, you can't offer it for yourself and not for other people. There's some rules on S corporations, but for a C corporation, if you've got something, it sounds like you've got like a chiropractic or something business. Where maybe there are full-time employees and you want to offer yourself 100% medical, but we don't want to maybe offer it to all the employees. What we could do is we could have a C corporation off to the side. And I need about $40,000 worth of medical expenses. I can't deduct anywhere else. Could the C corporation provide services to the chiropractic business and do their accounting or their dentist or their I don't know, their marketing or their bookkeeping or something, provide a $40,000 service to send the money over to the C corp? I'm the only employee over there, and now there's no discrimination. We have to be a little careful. If you own 100% of the stock of both, then the IRS can collapse them. So we want to be careful of that. But there are some really creative things that we can do. To deduct 100% medical, you could use an HSA plan that works for a lot of stuff. Again, we can't discriminate, or have a separate corporation that provides services to your other business. Those are the best ways that I know.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Brenda, good question. Best way to make money in my 401k accessible for investing. So you can roll that into a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k. Unless it's the 401k at your current employer, you may have to check, you have to check with your employer. Sometimes they say you can't roll it while you still work here. Some of them say, yeah, you can roll like 20% or 50%. But often you have to wait until you're no longer working there. I talked to someone 2 days ago and he said, oh, okay, well, I don't like my job anyway. I'll just go get a new job. Then I can roll that whole thing into a self-directed IRA. Like, well, there's a benefit of getting a new job. But if you have a 401k with a previous employer, you can roll that into a self-directed IRA or solo 401k. If you can do a solo 401k, I would suggest it, because if you're buying leveraged assets as your investments, then you have to pay UBIT if you have a self-directed IRA, and you don't have to if you have a solo 401k. So explore that with the company that you're going to work with, and it's not a taxable event. So
Eric, can I add a comment to that?
yeah, please do.
Anything that's a 401k was contributed and created by the employer, and therefore it has ERISA federal protection. So outside lawsuits can't touch it. Remember, O.J. Simpson sort of kind of killed his wife, but sort of didn't. But the plaintiff's attorneys can't get access to this multi-million-dollar NFL pension plan. Great, anything that the 401k pension plans have ERISA protection, IRAs do not. And so depending on the state that you live in, it might be a great investment decision, but you might have lost some asset protection. There are like 6 states that will protect traditional IRAs, but not Roth IRAs. There's states like Minnesota that will protect your IRA up to $68,000, and then it's accessible to plaintiffs' attorneys. Sarah, you live in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so your IRA is protected only to the limit that is necessary for your support. Anything beyond that is not protected. So sometimes it might be a great investment decision to roll money from a 401k to an IRA, but depending on the state that you live in and what you're investing in, it might be a really dumb asset protection strategy. I taught a whole webinar on this about a couple of weeks ago that we need to make available to your people, Sarah.
Yes, I didn't know that at all.
Okay.
That is really important. So if you go to is a solo 401k protected?
And no, it was not. Well, if it were for the business owners and we offered it to employees, yes, then then a 401. Then if it was employer contributed, it's ERISA protected generally. There's some funky rules, but that's the general rule. Employer funded means ERISA protection.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. See, another question saying, what does Sugo Capital do? So we provide a lot of education. We don't charge for it. And it's basically, I want people to make really great decisions for themselves when they're investing. And if our investments match people's goals, then I always present them and invite people to invest with us. All of our investments are passive. So they're syndications, they're funds, FUNDS funds. And yeah, so that's what we do. Different kinds of investment funds. And some of them are for accredited investors, some for non-accredited investors. We have both. And as far as the questions around accredited investors, nothing else. You can work with anyone on the screen, whether you're accredited or not accredited. All right. Tanisha, what if you don't have a rental property or your own home? Can you use a business loan if you have a business?
Yes, and my answer was yes, you can use a business line of credit. We have clients that are doing that.
All right. Cool.
Business loan, you don't want a loan, line of credit. Big difference. Mhm.
All right, Hughes. Someone's calling you Hughes, David. What's the minimum to invest with, y'all? Tamia is
Hughes. The minimum, well, there's really not. So like in our collaborative leveraging, I saw another question. We could kind of combine these. Someone
yeah,
mentioned
please do.
about,
Mhm.
the example we used a couple examples of people and students that we partner with on deals, and every deal is unique, based on the property, the people involved, the amount of money needed. And so for us, a lot of times, like for example, if you brought the deal to us, right, it's a good deal, good numbers, motivated seller, off market portfolio of properties, then our role could be a strategic partner. And on the knowledge side, right, of making it happen, negotiating it, deal structuring it, funding, making the funding happen. And then, but we would talk on the front end before that about what the partnership arrangement would be and percentages and all of that. So in terms of a minimum, there's no minimum. So like in that example with Caleb, I don't know if you saw that one, but it was no money out of his pocket, no credit, you know, and he stepped into being a 50% owner of 43 rentals in 2 months, right, from scratch of working with us. So in reality, what does that mean financially? Well, he stepped into hundreds of thousands of dollars of instant equity plus cash overflow of while he sleeps money, right, to live life full time now, right? And so that's what excites us, is being able to collapse time on itself in one deal or two deals for people to be able to step into their financial freedom or numbers, right? The beautiful thing about this panel, which I love, Tanisha, what you were sharing as well, got my wheels turning. There's just so many different mechanisms to money, and each of you all are different in the dynamics of your life, what you're looking for, what you're doing. But that's really what we focus on, is leveraging deals in creative ways. Both of those deals he sourced. So what the role was there is he sourced the deals, right? He took the knowledge that we showed him how to go source off-market properties. He sourced both of them, got the financials, handed them over to us, and then we stepped in and negotiated with the sellers. And then and he also was willing to do the management side, because we have, with the software technology and our processes, it can be very hands-off and efficient on a management side. So he was willing to do that too. So those are the roles in that deal. And so that'd be an answer to both those questions. So there's no required minimums in terms of money to partner with us or you know, invest in deals. If the role is something like that, where you're sourcing a property, or maybe you're going to oversee renovations or management or one of those things. Great questions though. Thank you.
And while you're on a roll, there's some, I think, really interesting, because I never get these kind of questions. David and Katie, if you were starting from scratch, would you begin with single family homes? And talk about like your mindset in the beginning versus your mindset now.
Yeah, this is a great question. All the questions have been great, but I love asking everybody this question, right? Because it's like all these panelists talking today and everyone, when I get around people, that's what I want to know, like knowing everything. We just asked, we had a Stephen Libman. I don't know. Do you know Stephen Libman, Sarah?
Mm-mm.
They've got like $100 million fund and they do apartments and,
Okay.
but anyway, really cool guy. But he was speaking to our students yesterday, I think it was, and I asked him that question. I was like, knowing everything you know now, after all these years, all the money and time you spent, like, what would you do if anything different? And it's always interesting answers for us. For me, the focus is still the same, right? My focus from day one was I just wanted financial freedom. So whatever was going to get me there the fastest in terms of cash flow, like sign me up for that. You know what I mean? Now, so that led me to my decision-making criteria when I was picking properties was based on cash flow, number one. Everything else to me was a bonus as far as appreciation, forced appreciation, debt pay down, every tax. That was all just layers of icing on the cake. But what I wanted at the core, my number one thing was I just wanted to live life full time and have time freedom and financial freedom. So to me, what gave me that was going to be cash flow, right? The money while I sleep, money that I don't need to do anything for. I don't need to trade time for that. So that was my criteria. Now, so to answer the question, how's the mindset different? Would I've still done the single family route? I mentioned this in my segment today, but that focal point will it filters the opportunities for us, right? Because whether it's a trailer or a trailer park or a land, I mean, we had a student, he made $75,000 in 5 hours on a land deal, which he had zero prior knowledge or experience in. But that's collaborative leveraging, right? It's collaborative leveraging. And again, if you all missed the definition, just watch the replay, is literally, you don't need to have the knowledge and experience. Someone else already does, right? So how does someone make $75,000 in 5 hours on a deal type they have zero prior knowledge or experience in? And at the time he was actually flipping houses. That's what he was doing. Well, it's because the focal point is on the math of the money, time and money. So now that we already have that, we don't have to get overwhelmed or confused. Should I do trailers? Should I do land? Should I do flips? Should I do this? I see a lot of people get confused and overwhelmed of which path should I do. For us, what's always made it simple, that's why our company is called Simplified Investing, just to simplify it and say, okay, our filter is cash flow and time and money. I've always, years ago, and this is the mindset part, Sarah, to it. Years ago, I decided I want to make more and more money while working less and less time and effort over time simultaneously. How do we do that? Of course, everything everybody's been talking about here today, leverage, compounding, growth, all that. But because I made that decision, that's what's always happened. Well, that's what started happening until I hit zero time. So we don't do any trade. Like the reason we're here, this is a passion project, right? To educate people. So we don't work at all. It's all passion projects. So we live. So, but that's by design of the mentality, the mindset would still be the same. I would have gotten there a lot faster, right? Then a lot of our students are going bigger, faster than we ever did, because, that's the power of a mentor and a coach. So my top advice to anyone, and I tell everyone this, is no matter who you are, what your goals are, of the hundreds of things I can tell you that are helpful, the number one thing I would recommend is get a mentor and coach that's right for you, that has the results that you want. And more importantly, they've helped a lot of others get those specific results that you want. And that's what I did. When I first started, I had a mentor, and we always have. So the mindset part's the same. The single family part would have still been in play, because if they had good cash flow, I would pick them up. I bought a lot of bank repo properties. But what I would have done a lot earlier is gotten into the multifamily earlier, sooner. I don't know, like Sarah, all the details of your journey, but like all these people, like Stephen Libman, he flipped 1,000 houses before he was like, man, this is so heavy. This is transactional. We're making a lot of money, but paying a lot of taxes. And then he shifted, and now he's done hundreds of millions of dollars worth of apartments. And but it's like, that's the natural progression, right? It's like, okay, good fundamentals here, the numbers, the margins, but then just doing it at scale, right? One property that has 20 units, 50 units, 100 units versus one. So I would say those would be my answers on that.
Yeah, and I'll say something on that, because I started in single family, and then I was like, whoa, this is gonna take a lot of stacking to get where I want to get, because living in Silicon Valley is not a cheap place to live over here. with high taxes. So I would have, once I learned about multifamily, I was like, oh, yes, okay, one purchase, 400 doors instead of 400 single doors.
Exactly.
However, like something that really changed for me, and I talked about this a little bit before, is like being inward focused versus being outwardly focused. So my original goal was to have a business that would replace my W-2 income in Silicon Valley, working at startups. And so I had a number goal of like, okay, this is how much I want to earn per year. Well, I didn't realize how quickly I was going to do that. I was like, okay, well, I guess that's done. And then I sent an email to all my investors and I said, thanks, I hit my goal kind of fast, but thanks. And then everyone was like, wait, you can't stop now. Like we have friends and family and we have more money that we want to place with you and yada, yada. And so then I shifted to thinking, oh, how can I support more people on their journey? How can I have bigger funds? How can I have funds for different purposes, for different audiences? And so I shifted my mindset from like an inward goal to an outward goal of service, while also maintaining my location freedom, my financial freedom, my time freedom, but still serving more people. And when I became outward focused on serving and creating products that help people reach their goals, it was like, boom, whoa, then it like really took off. And so I think, you know, similar to what you said, always think bigger and then also think outward and think what problems are you solving? Because the more problems you solve, the more value you create in the world and the more money you make. And so everything that I do is strategic partnerships, like what you're talking about. I don't do 100% of everything on any of my syndications. It's never Sugo Capital soup to nuts. It's I have a partner who finds the deal. You know, we split up the roles and responsibility. I have a partner who lives locally who gets to check in on the apartment complex every month. That's not me visiting 24 apartment complexes every week, you know? And so there's always room for strategic partnerships. I would have partnered with more people earlier because once I did, that's also when I blew up my company and my investment portfolio. And my goal is equity and wealth stacking, not passive income. And so it's interesting hearing so much from people focusing on passive incomes, since that's not my focus. But that's perfect because, you know, it's just evidence that we all have really different goals. So that's why different investments are great for different people. Like I love putting together a deal and cool, I get $1 million of equity. That's great for me. I don't need any more cash flow right now. So yeah.
Can I say, that's great. Can I say one other quick thing, Sarah, on what you were talking about? That's the part that I didn't say and was going to say too, is that was the other thing I would have done earlier. On the first 20 properties or so, it was just me, you know, acquiring them. That was like me collecting grapes versus owning 25% or 50% of a watermelon, right? Along each time, like you're saying. So I would have definitely partnered, like on the last 55 units that we've acquired in multiple deals, they've all been strategic partnership deals. And so, and moving forward, that will be the case. I mean, it'll be the majority of acquisitions will be with strategic partnerships for all the reasons like you were talking about. And the one other thing I wanted to make sure and share with everybody on that question, would you still do single family? I think a great opportunity is in the portfolios of single family. You have a lot of people focused on apartments. You have a lot of people that are flipping, doing the onesie twosie houses. But from the people that I've been around in the investing world, I don't see many people focusing on buying portfolios of, now there are hedge funds and there are different things depending on the size, the market and all that. But this 70 house portfolio we're under contract with, is 70 houses in Florida. We're super excited with what that is and what the numbers and it's so those can be great opportunities. And I didn't think like that. Like Sarah said, thinking bigger. I would have done early on, because that would have opened my eyes to strategic partners, other investors who would have come in. And I could have been buying 10 houses at a time, 20 houses at a time, 50 houses instead of 1 or 2 or 3. 3 was like the most I was buying at a time, you know, on my own. So that would have definitely accelerated everything. So I agree with everything you just said there.
Don, this one's for you. Can you recommend a tax pro that's as thorough as you? I don't know if you do that or.
Well, I was starting to write an answer to that, but it so depends. We work with so many different tax professionals. It depends on what it is that you're doing. If you're doing oil and gas, you better have an oil and gas specialist who understands oil and gas. Or and if your tax professional isn't doing oil and gas, I'm sorry, they don't get it. If you're doing fix and flips, you better find an accountant that's doing fix and flips, or I'm sorry, you're going to miss tax deductions that that just isn't available. So look for. Remember, taxes are nationwide. Most of the tax game is not one on the state level; it's one on the federal level, and then your federal. Then you take your federal tax return, and so I don't care where they live. Look for the specialty of what it is, whatever you're engaged in, and look for a tax professional that specializes in that area. Otherwise, you really are missing the game. But you're never going to find a tax professional that's good at everything. I'm sorry, they don't exist. That would be my best advice. And it doesn't matter if they're across the nation. Find a specialist. Tanisha, you're an attorney. You've given this advice hundreds of times. What would you do? I loved your presentation, by the way. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, thank you. No, I agree with everything you just said. You always want to find experts that are familiar with what you're trying to do. It's hard. If not, they're trying to figure it out. It just becomes, I don't know. We've switched, tax people like over the years, and we're very happy with who we're with now. But it's, you really need to know who you're dealing with. The regular tax person, there are people out there that don't even know like what cost segregation is. There are accountants out there that don't know what that is. And so, they think it's a scam or something. I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, I always tell investors when it's the first time that they're going to do a passive investment, I'll give them a K1. And I say, take this to your CPA and see what they think. And if they don't understand the K1 that, that has cost seg results on it, and if they go, you can't use this, or I don't know what this is, and okay, then get a different CPA, get a different tax person if this is what you're going to be doing.
The only other thing I would add to that is there's a difference between a tax preparer and a tax planner. A
Yes.
tax preparer is somebody that's going to put in all the right information that you gave them after the damage is done. A tax planner is somebody that can sit down and strategize with you. And what if we added a legal entity over here that could deduct 100% of medical? Or what if you've got passive losses over here and active gains over here? What if we strategize? And what if you bought this investment not in your IRA, but you're going to lose all the depreciation deductions, buy that in an LLC, and that this would be a better one for an IRA. There's so much tax planning that could be done, but it can't be done after the fact. You can't do it after the damage is done. You have to, tax planners make all the difference in the world. I sat down with Kevin O'Leary last year a couple of times and got a chance to interview him. And he doesn't like his tax planners, but he uses them all the time. Don't care for them. I don't drink at the bar with them. I just don't go out and socialize. But it's not their personality; it's what they can do for you. I don't care whether you like them or not. It's irrelevant. What can they do and what can they strategize with you? That's what you're looking for. Tax planners.
Mm-hmm. And also talk very thoroughly with who you're investing with as well, because sometimes people don't tell me that information and then they make an investment. And I'm definitely not a tax planner or a CPA or anything like that. But if someone is like, I'm going to invest in your apartment new developments, and I'm going to invest in your oil and gas, and I have IRA money and I have cash in my savings, then I would say, okay, do the oil and gas with the cash in your savings, do the new development with your IRA because it doesn't have any cash flow, it doesn't have any tax benefit. And now take this information, take my suggestion to your CPA and tax planner and make sure they agree. But what happens sometimes is people, they do the investment, they swap it around and they're like, oh, I've deployed my money into the things that I like. And then 6 months later or 12 months later, they're like, oh, Sarah, can I transfer that from my IRA? Can you actually, I didn't want to do that. Can I swap it around? You can't. If it's a passive investment, you can't, like funds and syndications and stuff, you can't swap it around. So it's not just tell your tax planner your goals, also tell your goals and your, what you're dealing with to the person you're investing with, because they probably have a lot of knowledge. We have thousands of investors that I talk to all the time. And so I have a depth of knowledge that I can say, hey, do this, don't do that. Now take what I just said to an actual professional in this space, but you can do like a cursory with whoever you're investing with. All right, I see one about a self-directed IRA. So this is really important, Joe. This is a good question because I've seen people get burned by this. If you invest in real estate and your plan is to hold for the long term, or I've seen this where people invest in a syndication and the hold period for the syndication is 5 years and they're using their IRA, but then they need to do minimum distributions a year later and they don't have any cash to do their minimum distributions. What happens? It's not good what happens. So you do still have to make your distributions. So you have to make sure that however you're doing your investments, that they're liquid enough that you can still do your minimum distributions when it's time to do those. That's why it's important to pay attention to the liquidity and the hold period for your investments. It's a good question, Joe. I'm glad you're thinking about that. Does anyone else have something they want to add to that one? All right, I'm going to do one more question then, and I think then that'll take us to the top of the hour. We'll do final comments and then jump off. All right, so this someone is probably for you, Don. My husband has a living revocable trust in his name and another living revocable trust in children's name, and I do not have a trust. Do you directly help create a trust and create a strategy?
Yes, okay, we're not a law firm. So we referred, I was answering somebody else's question
Sorry.
about Anderson Law Group. We love Anderson. We refer people to lots of different law firms. Anderson, for instance, doesn't do intellectual property. They don't do charitable remainder trust. They don't do offshore planning. There are a lot of things that they don't do. Well, I love Clint, love working with Toby and worked with them for almost 25 years. So yes on that, but can we help you with trust? First of all, you have to understand, do you need a trust? Will a simple will work? And if we have real estate or assets, anything over that are subject to probate, yeah, maybe a trust would be a good idea. And we spend a lot of time teaching the basics of what a trust is and how it works and how it's funded so that you can make an educated decision. And then, yes, there's lots of different law firms, depending on what you need, or there's not a one, just like there's not a one accountant that's going to do everything in the world. There's not one law firm in the world that's going to be able to do everything. But yes, we've got some really, really good attorneys if that's what you need is a revocable living trust.
Cool. Thank you for that. All right. With that, I'm going to say, let's do a round table. Final comments, final piece of advice or inspiration from each speaker. We'll start with Tanisha.
Well, I think I just like to tell everyone that continue on your journey of getting educated. Investing does not have to be hard. It can actually be quite easy if you're working with people with experience and you have a system, right? Systems are duplicatable, they're repeatable, and they can help you build wealth faster than you can ever do on your own. So, yeah.
Thank you. Don?
Get started, do something. I've loved the presentations today, but there's things that I don't know what to do. And should I set up a C Corp or an S Corp? Well, you know what? We can fix that. I should have added this to my trust. Oh, that's okay. It's revocable, amendable. We can fix that. But if you, the one thing that we can't fix I got into this investment, but, oh, okay. The one thing that we can't fix is when you sit and do nothing. Can't help you with that. Almost everything you do in life, you're going to learn from. There's going to be an experience. There's going to be a learning curve. Okay, so you made some mistakes. Okay, good. But sitting down and doing nothing, take what you learn, take one principle that, like Sarah said, from every speaker or something, and do something. Loved your education. Sarah, thanks for putting this all together. It's been fun.
You're welcome. Thank you, Don. David. What you got?
Yes, amen to everything you all have said. And I mean, even Don, what he was just saying, actually in both Tanisha, I wrote down two things, which is what I was going to say. One of my favorite quotes, learners will inherit the earth while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. So that goes back to what we talked about earlier, just staying childlike, hungry, humble, curious, and around people who know a lot more than you do and the things that you want to know about and be about and live about. And that just collapses time on itself. And to Don, and it is team wealth building is a team sport.
Yep.
So, I think too many times, too many people are frustrated and discouraged at their slow progress and their goals because they're trying to do too much on their own and you're just in your own way. Right. So get out of your way and ask for help and put yourself in conversations and rooms around people who can help, want to help you and love to help you, and that's what we're all here, so it's thanks again for putting this all together. And to Don's point, yeah, I wrote down, done beats perfect. So you really got to get into that action mode of taking imperfect action. It's going to be imperfect. I mean, we still, after all these years and the deals, I mean, there's still that we learn every day. And there's things that we don't know and deals that we move forward on that we're just going to ask the questions, learn as we go and figure it out and reflect and refine and improve as we go. So I agree 100% with all those things. And the last thing I'll say is just, if I had to sum up like what really catapulted us into, really the life of our dreams and beyond what we had even dreamed we could live, right, was really just choosing to plant ourselves around the people. Right. We're a product of our environment. Each of you are a product of your environment. You are in your health, relationships, finances. I mean, but the awesome thing is you get to choose who you're putting yourself around. And so as long as if you get that one thing right, it's like we're trying to get all these things right. But if we just get the one thing right, it's a domino effect that way. So.
Love it. And my parting comments are congratulations. You guys have been on here for like 4 hours now, audience. So you are the group of people who are learning. You are the people who are continuing to learn and being good stewards of your money and your families and your friends. And I would say take what you heard today and talk to other people about it, because that you can create your own little masterminds within your current community. You can spread the knowledge that you have, share it with other people, and then they're going to give you nuggets as well. So you can learn from each other, make it normal conversation. It's so taboo to talk about investments, and unless you're in a specific environment that's supposed to be talking about investments, but go out there and help other people focus on this, because we so hyper focus on, at least in America, like, what is our W-2 check? Okay, but then what do you do with that? Your tax strategy, your investments, your lifestyle. Like, let's all focus on that and make that part of our conversation, not just like, oh, what do you do? What's your job? Where'd you go to school? So boring. All right, and with that, I'll say thank you to the speakers. That was awesome. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for spending so much time with this wonderful audience and sharing everything, your big brain dumps. It was beautiful. And an audience, the replay is going to come out tomorrow. It'll have ways to contact all the speakers and, all the gifts that they offered and the continuing education that they offered. So thanks for being abundant with your minds and with your hearts. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.